Story 1. The Passenger in the Mirror. The CB crackled at exactly 2:17 a.m., and Marcus heard his own voice screaming from the speaker. Not similar, not close. His exact voice, terror-soaked and raw, shrieking words he'd never spoken. "Don't look in the passenger mirror. Don't look in the passenger mirror. Don't look!" He slapped the CB off, hands shaking, southbound on I-80 through Nebraska, with 300 miles of darkness ahead. Marcus Holloway had been hauling refrigerated goods for 16 years, Omaha to Sacramento, twice weekly, always the night shift because the pay bump covered his daughter's chemotherapy. He knew every truck stop, every way station, every place the road dipped and rose between the cornfields and the Rockies. He knew the CB chatter, the bored voices, the lot lizard warnings, the smoky reports. He'd never heard anything like that. His phone showed no signal. The reefer unit hummed behind him, keeping 40,000 pounds of beef at 34 degrees. His GPS showed the blue line of highway cutting through black nothing. Weather clear, traffic non-existent. Just Marcus, his Peterbilt, and that voice still echoing in his skull. He checked his passenger mirror out of habit, saw movement. Prejudice sat in the passenger seat, pale, watching him. Marcus jerked the wheel, the trailer fishtailing before he corrected, heart slamming against his ribs. He snapped his head right. The passenger seat was empty, just his thermos, his logbook, the St. Christopher medal dangling from the air vent. He looked back at the mirror. The figure was still there, clearer now. A man in a trucker's cap, face shadow dark except for his eyes, which reflected the dashboard lights like an animal's. Marcus didn't believe in ghosts, didn't believe in anything except the road and the paycheck and getting home to Julie before the cancer took her. But the figure in the mirror raised one hand and pointed forward, down the highway, and Marcus saw that its fingers were too long, the joints bending in too many places. He grabbed the CB receiver, hands slick with sweat. "Breaker, breaker, anyone on this channel? I need—" Static. Then his voice again, different words. "Mile marker 247. That's where it happens. You've got 6 minutes." Marcus checked the A1. His foot eased off the accelerator instinctively, the big rig slowing from 70 to 60. The figure in the passenger mirror leaned forward, and Marcus could see its mouth moving, shaping words he couldn't hear. Its two long fingers pressed against the glass from inside, as if the mirror were a window it was trying to escape through. "What do you want?" Marcus whispered to the empty cab. The heater blasted warm air, but his breath came out in visible clouds. The temperature gauge on the dash read 72 degrees. His breath shouldn't be fogging. The figure's mouth kept moving. And Marcus realized with crawling horror that it was counting down. 10, 9, 8. Mile marker 244. Marcus's foot hovered over the brake. The highway stretched empty in both directions. No headlights, no taillights, just the endless black prairie and the star-thick sky. The median barrier ran down the center, concrete and predictable. Nothing unusual, nothing wrong. But every instinct honed over 1,000,000 miles screamed at him to stop. 7, 6, 5. The figures counting matched the mile markers now. Marcus saw mile marker 245 slide past, then 246. His speedometer read 55. The Jake brake was singing, the big diesel engine growling lower. 4, 3, 2. Mile marker 247 appeared in his headlights, and Marcus saw the semi-truck jackknifed across both lanes. No lights, no flares, no warning. Just 50 feet of twisted metal and trailer blocking the road at a blind curve. And he had maybe 3 seconds before impact at 50 miles per hour with 40,000 pounds of beef
pushing him forward. Marcus stood on the brakes. The ABS hammered, the rig shuddering, tires screaming. The seatbelt cut into his chest. His thermos launched forward, exploding against the windshield. The world compressed into a single moment of screeching momentum and the absolute certainty of death. Poorest. The Peterbilt stopped 18 inches from the jackknifed trailer, close enough that Marcus could read the faded dot numbers on its side in his headlights. Close enough to see that the other truck's cab was empty, driver's door hanging open, and that something dark had been smeared across the windshield from the inside. Marcus sat frozen, gasping, his heart trying to hammer through his sternum. Slowly, he turned his head to look at the passenger mirror. The figure was gone. The seat was empty. The temperature in the cab was normal. No more fog breath. Just Marcus and the night and the impossible wreck he'd somehow avoided. His hands shook so badly it took 3 tries to grab his phone. Still no signal. He reached for the CB, then stopped. What would he say? Who would he call? He'd avoided an accident that shouldn't have been there, warned by a voice that shouldn't have existed, by a figure in his mirror that couldn't be real. Marcus put the truck in reverse, backed up 20 yards, and pulled onto the shoulder. He grabbed his flashlight and climbed down from the cab. His legs nearly buckled. The night air was cool and smelled like dirt and diesel. The jackknifed truck sat silent across the highway, and now that Marcus was outside, he could see the entire scene properly. The trailer had torn open. Its contents looked like furniture, moving boxes, had spilled across both lanes. The cab's windshield was intact, but covered in that dark smear. Not blood, too thick, almost like tar, but with a texture that made Marcus's stomach turn. Patterns in it that looked almost like
handprints. Many handprints, small ones. The driver's door hung open, creaking slightly in the breeze. Marcus approached slowly, flashlight beam cutting through the darkness. His breath was loud in his ears. Somewhere in the distance a coyote called. No other sound, no traffic. The highway was never this empty. He reached the cab and shined his light inside. The seat was empty, but the interior, Marcus had to look away, hand over his mouth, fighting the urge to vomit. The entire inside of the cab was covered in that tar-like substance. The steering wheel, the dash, the ceiling, the sleeper berth in back. And in the substance, pressed into it like fossils, were shapes. Faces. Dozens of faces, their mouths open, their eyes wide, all turned toward the passenger seat. Marcus backed away, his flashlight beam shaking. This wasn't an accident. This was something else, something wrong on a level that made his rational mind want to shut down. He turned back toward his Peterbilt, and that's when he saw the figure standing next to his truck. The man from the mirror. Real now. Physical. Wearing a trucker's cap and a jacket Marcus recognized because he owned the same one, the Schneider National jacket they'd issued him in 2007. The figure's face was still shadow dark, but its eyes caught the flashlight beam and reflected it back, bright and animal. "You stopped," the figure said, and its voice was Marcus's voice. Exactly. "I didn't." Marcus's legs locked. He couldn't move, couldn't breathe. The figure tilted its head, and in the gesture Marcus recognized himself, the way he moved, the way he stood. This thing wasn't just wearing his voice, it was wearing him. "March 19th, 2014, the figure said. "Mile marker 247, 2:23 a.m. I was running late. Julie's treatment was the next morning and I'd promised I'd be there. I was doing 78 in a 70 zone and I was tired, and I didn't see it until too late. Marcus remembered. March 19th, 2014, 11 years ago. He'd been running this same route, and no, that night had been fine. He'd made it to Sacramento, unloaded, driven home, been there for Julie's treatment. That night had been normal. Hadn't it? I didn't stop. The figure said, stepping closer. Its boots made no sound on the asphalt. I hit the wreck at 78 miles per hour. The impact folded my cab like paper. The reefer unit crushed through the sleeper berth. They said I died instantly, but that's not true. I died slowly, trapped in the metal, feeling everything for 47 minutes before I finally bled out. No, Marcus whispered. No, I'm alive. I'm here. I made it home. Julie died 3 months later, the figure said, and its voice was gentle now, sad. You weren't there. You were here, in the wreck, dying. She called your phone 63 times. You never answered. The highway around Marcus began to change. The darkness grew thicker, textured, and he realized with creeping horror that it wasn't darkness at all. It was the tar substance from the wrecked cab spreading across the road, across the prairie, rising up like walls on either side. The faces in it were moving now, their mouths working, their eyes tracking him. This is the moment, the figure said. This is where it happens. Over and over. Every night at 2:17 a.m. you get the warning. Every night you have a choice. Stop and see the truth, or keep driving and live in the dream for another rotation. Marcus looked down at his hands. In the flashlight beam, they were translucent, just slightly. He could see the bones underneath, and the bones were broken, shattered, the way they would be after catastrophic impact. He touched his chest where the seatbelt had cut into him, and his fingers came away wet with blood that had been there all along, hidden underneath the illusion of normalcy. How long? Marcus asked, his voice breaking. 11 years, the figure said. 4,015 nights. You've stopped 17 times. The other 3,998 times, you kept driving past the wreck, and the loop reset at dawn. You wake up in Omaha with a full load and no memory of the truth. But each time you stop, the dream cracks a little more. The tar walls were closing in now, and Marcus could hear the faces whispering, thousands of voices layered over each other. Other drivers, he realized, other people caught in their own loops, their own moments of death, unable to let go. The highway was thick with ghosts. What happens if I remember? Marcus asked. What happens if I accept it? The figure, his own corpse, his own ghost, smiled sadly. Then you move on. Or you stay and try to warn the next person. That's what I've been doing. Trying to save the me that's still living, still driving, still making the choice. Marcus looked at his truck, his Peterbilt, and saw now that it was crusted with rust, the paint faded, the tires flat. A wreck pretending to be functional.
He looked at the jackknifed trailer and saw that it too was ancient, weathered by 11 years of sitting in this pocket of frozen time. And beyond it, further down the highway, he saw other wrecks, dozens of them, hundreds. All the accidents that had happened on this stretch of road, all the moments of death stacked on top of each other in this place between living and dying. "I don't want to be here," Marcus said. Tears ran down his face, cold and real. "I want to go home. I want to see Julie." "You can't," the figure said softly. "She's been gone for 10 years and 8 months. Your daughter, your beautiful girl, she's 33 now. She survived. She got married. She has a son. They named him Marcus." The grief
hit like another impact, folding Marcus in on himself. He sank to his knees on the tar-covered highway, surrounded by whispering faces, while his own ghost stood over him. All those years, all that time, gone, lived in a loop, in a dream of endless highway, while the real world moved on without him. "I'm sorry," the figure said. "I've been trying to tell you, every night, but you have to choose to hear it." Marcus looked up at himself, at the thing he'd become. "If I let go, will it stop? Will I be free?" "I don't know," the figure admitted. "I've never gotten this far before. You always panic and run back to the truck, and the dream resets. But maybe if you acknowledge it, maybe if you stop trying to drive away." Marcus stood slowly. His body felt light now, insubstantial. The blood on his chest was spreading, blooming, showing the truth of his injuries. Crushed ribs, punctured lungs, internal bleeding. He'd been dead for 11 years, his body rotting in a grave in Sacramento, while his ghost drove the same route every night, trapped in the moment before impact. "Okay," Marcus said. "Okay. I'm dead. I died here. This is where it ends." The figure nodded. "This is where it ends." Marcus turned toward the wreck, toward the jackknifed trailer. He started walking. With each step, the illusion fell away more. His truck vanished behind him, fading into nothing. The highway crumbled, revealing the underneath. Not asphalt, but something organic, pulsing, alive. The other wrecks became clearer, and he could see the drivers standing beside them, watching him. Some looked relieved. Some looked envious. All of them were waiting. He reached the jackknifed cab and climbed inside, settling into the driver's seat. The tar substance was warm, almost welcoming. The faces pressed into it were smiling now. He understood finally what they were. Not victims, witnesses. Everyone who died on this road, all of them together, holding the space open for the ones still trapped in their loops. Marcus felt his body sink into the tar, felt it embrace him, accept him. The pain faded. The confusion faded. He was just tired now, so tired, and ready to rest. His ghost, or maybe his living self, the version that had kept driving through the dream, stood at the door, watching. "Thank you," Marcus said, "for trying to save me." "I'll keep trying," the ghost replied. "Maybe next time I'll stop. Maybe next time I'll listen." Marcus closed his eyes. The faces in the tar whispered welcome. Welcome home. Rest now, it's done. The highway dissolved around him. The loop unwound. For the first time in 11 years, Marcus stopped driving.
And somewhere in Sacramento, in a cemetery under oak trees, a gravestone marked March 19th, 2014, finally settled, the ground above it going still. On I-80 through Nebraska, at mile marker 247, the
jackknife truck disappeared. The road was clear. Traffic flowed normally. And in 500 cabs rolling through the darkness, drivers adjusted their mirrors and kept their eyes forward, never seeing the figure in the passenger seat. The one pointing ahead. The one trying desperately to warn them about the moment they'd never remember surviving. Marcus Holloway's CB radio crackled in the evidence locker where they'd stored it after the accident. Static. Then a voice, tired but clear. Breaker, breaker, to anyone listening. If you hear yourself on the radio, stop the truck. Just stop. Don't make me keep driving forever trying to save you. The message repeated all night, every night, on every CB frequency up and down I-80. Nobody ever stopped. 2. The faces in the fog. Danny Reeves knew the Columbia River Gorge better than his own apartment. Every switchback, every turnout, every place where the fog rolled in thick enough to stop traffic for hours. 22 years hauling lumber from Portland to Spokane meant he'd driven this route in every kind of weather, through ice storms and summer heat waves, and the kind of autumn fog that turned I-84 into a ghost road. But he'd never seen fog with faces in it before. It started at 3:41 a.m. on October 7th, somewhere between Hood River and the Dalles. 1 second, the road was clear, his headlights cutting through normal darkness, and the next, the fog came down like a curtain. Not rolling in, not creeping, just there, instantly, dense and white and pressing against his windshield like something solid. Danny slowed to 40, then 30, then 20. His wipers pushed at the fog uselessly. It didn't behave like normal fog. It had texture, almost thickness. And where his headlight beams touched it, the fog seemed to recoil slightly before surging back. The yellow line disappeared. The guardrail disappeared. Danny was driving blind, trusting his sense of the road, his muscle memory of the turns. That's when he saw the first face. It appeared in the fog directly ahead, maybe 10 feet from his bumper. A woman's face, mouth open, eyes wide, pressed against the white like she was trapped behind a shower curtain. She was screaming. Danny could see her lips moving, the tendons in her neck standing out, but he heard nothing over the rumble of his diesel engine. He jerked the wheel right instinctively. The face vanished. But in his driver's side mirror, he saw it again, following the truck, floating in the fog at window height. And now there were others. A man's face, hollow-cheeked and desperate. A child's face, too young, too pale. An elderly woman with her eyes rolled back white. Blackmail, all of them screaming silently in the fog. Danny's hands locked on the wheel, knuckles white. His CB was nothing but static. His phone showed no signal. Normal for the gorge, the canyon walls blocked everything. He was alone with his lumber load and the faces and the road. Kept winding. The fog kept pressing, and the faces kept multiplying. He counted 14 before he stopped counting. They surrounded the truck now, keeping pace at 30 miles per hour, their mouths working frantically, their hands. They had hands now, pressing against the fog, reaching toward his doors, his windows, his mirrors. Some of the faces were fresh, normal, human. Others were wrong. Skin too tight, eyes too large, mouths that opened wider than biology should allow, showing throats that went down and down into impossible depths. The odometer clicked past mile marker 73. Danny knew this stretch. Another 6 miles and he'd hit the turnoff for the Dalles. Civilization, light, other people. He just had to keep driving. The faces couldn't touch him. They were fog, just fog, hallucinations brought on by exhaustion and the hypnotic white void. Real fog with unreal shapes. He'd driven through worse. Then his headlights caught something in the road ahead. A figure. Standing. Solid. Danny slammed the brakes. The truck shuddered, the trailer swaying. 45,000 pounds of Douglas fir trying to push him forward. The ABS chattered. The seatbelt cut into his ribs. The truck stopped 15 feet from the figure. It was a man in a high-visibility vest, the kind highway workers wore. He stood perfectly still in the center of Danny's lane, and the fog around him was darker, thicker, wrong. The man raised one hand slowly and pointed to the right, to the shoulder. Danny's breath came in short gasps. Every instinct said to reverse, turn around, get away. But behind him the fog was solid now, impenetrable, and the faces were pressing against his trailer. He could hear them thumping against the metal sides. The only direction was forward. He eased the truck past the figure, giving it wide berth, pulling onto the shoulder like it had indicated. His tires crunched gravel. The guardrail appeared in his headlights, then a turnout, one of the scenic overlooks that dotted the gorge, places where tourists stopped to photograph the river. The fog cleared suddenly, as if he'd driven through a wall. The turnout was visible, empty, the river visible far below, and the highway visible stretching ahead into normal darkness. Danny looked in his mirrors. The fog bank stood behind him like a white wall, and the faces were pressed against its surface. Dozens of them now. Hundreds. All screaming at him. Danny put the truck in park. His hands were shaking so badly he could barely operate the gear shift. He was safe. He was out. The fog couldn't follow him. Whatever he'd seen, hallucinations, mass hysteria, something in the air, it was over. Then he saw the figure in the high-visibility vest walking toward his truck from the fog. It moved wrong. Its legs bent at the joints, but the movement was too smooth, too fluid, like a puppet on strings. As it got closer, Danny could see its face under the hood of the vest. It was blank. Not featureless. There were suggestions of features, impressions of where eyes and a mouth should be, but they were shallow, unfinished, like a clay sculpture someone had abandoned halfway through. The figure reached Danny's door and knocked. 3 slow, deliberate knocks that resonated through the cab. "Get away from my truck!" Danny shouted, his voice cracked. The figure tilted its head, the not-quite face angling toward him, and knocked again. 3 times. Patient. Waiting. Danny grabbed his phone. Still no signal. He reached for the CB and the radio crackled the life before he touched it. A voice came through, male, calm, institutional. "Driver of the Freightliner, Washington plate 7934 X-ray Charlie. You have pulled into a restricted area. Please exit your vehicle for processing." "Processing?" Danny whispered. He looked at the turnout around him. It looked normal. Concrete pad, metal guardrail, Forest Service sign about the gorge ecosystem. But now that he was looking closer, he could see problems. The concrete was too smooth, no cracks, no weathering.
The guardrail posts were evenly spaced to the millimeter. The Forest Service sign's text was slightly wrong, the letters not quite aligned, like a photocopy of a photocopy. More figures were emerging from the fog wall. Dozens of them, all in high-visibility vests, all with those blank, incomplete faces, all walking toward his truck with that puppet string movement. Flooring Danny locked his doors. Childish, stupid, but it was all he could think to do. The figures surrounded the cab, and he could hear them now, humming. All of them humming the same note, a low frequency that made his teeth ache and his vision blur. One of them produced a tool from its vest. Not a tool Danny recognized, something angular and metallic that seemed to have too many moving parts that hurt to look at directly. The figure raised it toward Danny's door, and the humming increased in volume. Danny threw the truck into reverse, floored the accelerator. The Freightliner shot backward, its backup alarm screaming. The figures scattered. No, not scattered. Vanished. One moment they were there, the next they were gone, and Danny's truck was rocketing backward toward the fog wall. He hit it at 20 miles per hour. The fog shattered around him like glass, fracturing into geometric shards that dissipated into nothing. And suddenly Danny was back on the highway proper, driving in reverse in the correct lane. No fog, no faces, just normal October darkness and the yellow line and the guardrail and the river far below. Danny spun the wheel, shifted into drive 60, 40, 50, 60. The speed limit was 55, but he didn't care, needed reality, needed to get away from whatever that turnout had been. His CB crackled again. Different voice this time. Female, with an accent Danny couldn't place. "You can't leave the processing area, driver. You've been selected. Please return to the designated location." "Fuck your designated location!" Danny shouted at the radio. He grabbed the CB and threw it against the passenger door. It sparked and went dead. The mile markers were counting down normally. 74, 75. He'd somehow gone backward, but that was fine. He could get to Hood River instead. There was a truck stop there, people, lights, safety. His speedometer read 68 miles per hour. The Freightliner was shaking slightly, the load shifting in the trailer, but he didn't care. Mile marker 76 appeared in his headlights, then 77, then 73. 3. He'd been at 73 before the fog hit. The mile markers were going backward again. Or forward. Or neither. They weren't following the right sequence anymore. The fog came back instantly, same as before, like a curtain dropping. But this time, there were no faces. This time, there was something worse. The road ahead split. Not a fork, not an exit, a physical split. The asphalt dividing like a cell, forming two identical highways that curved away from each other at impossible angles. The guardrails split with it, and beyond them Danny could see the river, except the river was now flowing upward, defying gravity, the water climbing toward the sky in a silent, massive cascade. Danny chose the left split because it was closest. The truck tilted as he turned, and for a horrible moment he thought he was going to flip, but the wheels gripped and he was through, and the road was singular again, normal again. Except it wasn't the gorge anymore. The landscape outside his windows was flat, no canyon walls, no river, just emptiness stretching in all directions, gray and featureless. And in that emptiness were structures. Buildings that looked almost like rest stops, almost like way stations, almost like truck depots, but wrong in ways that made Danny's brain hurt. Too many angles, walls that curved impossible directions, windows that showed different interiors depending on which angle he viewed them from. And trucks. Dozens of trucks parked at these structures, hundreds, all of them dark, No lights, no drivers visible, just sitting in perfect rows, like toys. Danny kept driving. What else could he do? The highway continued ahead, real asphalt, real yellow line, even if everything around it was impossible. His fuel gauge showed 3/4 full. He had hours of driving left in him if needed. Eventually, this had to end. Eventually, he'd find a way back to reality. The structures passed by on both sides, and as Danny watched, figures in high-visibility vests emerged from them. They stood at the edge of the highway, watching his truck pass. Hundreds of them now. Thousands. All with those blank faces, all perfectly still except for their heads, which tracked his movement with
mechanical precision. A sign appeared on the roadside. Standard green highway sign, except the text was wrong. Mandatory stop ahead, all commercial vehicles. District 7 processing. Danny's throat was dry. District 7. There were no districts on I-84, just state jurisdictions, county lines, normal geography. He pressed the accelerator harder, 70 miles per hour, 75. The speedometer crept toward 80, and the Freightliner protested, the whole rig shaking, the steering wheel vibrating in his hands. Another sign. Processing mandatory. Failure to comply. Permanent integration. Positively ahead began to narrow. The lanes were converging, squeezing together, forcing him toward a structure that sprawled across the entire road. It looked like a way station, but wrong, too large, too complex, with machinery visible inside that Danny couldn't identify. The figures in vests stood at its entrance, waiting. "No," Danny said out loud. "No, no, 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 no." He saw a gap. To the right, between two of the parked trucks, a space barely wide enough for his Freightliner. Danny cranked the wheel hard right, jumped the curb, except there was no curb. The asphalt just ended and the gray emptiness began, and gunned it between the parked vehicles. Flooding their trailers, metal screamed, but he was through, and now he was driving across the emptiness itself. No road, just flat, gray nothing. And the structures were receding behind him. The figures weren't following. They were just standing, watching. Danny drove for what felt like hours, but his clock showed only 7 minutes had passed since the fog first hit. Time was wrong here. Space was wrong. Everything was wrong. But ahead he saw something. A light. Familiar yellow-white light, the kind that came from normal truck stop sodium lamps. Discharged for it, pushing the Freightliner across the gray void, and the light grew closer, and Danny could see shapes resolving around it. Buildings, trucks, normal trucks with company logos and DOT numbers. The gray emptiness faded, replaced by real ground, real dirt, real gravel, and suddenly Danny's tires were crunching over the parking lot of a Pilot Travel Center, the neon sign bright and beautiful and real. He parked in the first space he found and killed the engine. His entire body was shaking. He sat in the cab for 10 minutes, just breathing, looking at the normal world around him. Other truckers walking to the building, cars fueling up, a family with young kids heading into the McDonald's. Reality. Normal, boring, beautiful reality. Danny climbed down from the cab on legs that barely held him. He walked around his truck, checking for damage. The mirrors were scraped, but intact. The trailer showed fresh gouges down both sides, deep and precise, like something had tried to peel the metal away in strips. His lumber load was secure, the straps holding. He went inside the travel center, bought coffee and a sandwich he didn't taste. and asked the clerk what town he was in. "Rufus," she said, giving him an odd look. "You okay, honey? You look like you've seen a ghost." Rufus. Danny knew Rufus. It was mile marker 97. He'd somehow jumped 24 miles in 7 minutes. Or he'd driven in circles. Or something worse had happened, something his mind was refusing to process. He went back to his truck and opened his logbook. The last entry he'd written was at Hood River, mile marker 64, 3:27 a.m. He checked his watch. 4:53 a.m. An hour and 26 minutes had passed, but he only remembered about 30 minutes of driving. His CB was still dead, destroyed where he'd thrown it. Danny grabbed his phone and saw that he had signal now. 17 missed calls from dispatch, 12 voicemails. He listened to the first one. "Danny, where the hell are you? Your GPS tracker went offline at mile marker 73 an hour ago. Call me back immediately." The second voicemail. "Danny, we're getting weird data from your truck. The system shows you drove off-road for 16 miles. Then you were stationary. Then you jumped to Rufus in less than 3 minutes. What the hell is going on?" The third voicemail was just breathing. Heavy, mechanical breathing, and under it that same humming sound the figures had made. Danny deleted all the voicemails without listening to the rest. He called dispatch and told them he'd had engine trouble, had to pull over. Everything was fine now. He'd complete the delivery on time. His supervisor was suspicious, but accepted it. Danny climbed back in the cab, restarted the engine, and pulled out of the travel center. The highway stretched ahead, normal and real, and he joined the flow of traffic heading east. The sun was starting to rise behind him, painting the gorge in shades of gold and orange. Beautiful. Normal. The fog was gone completely. But in his driver's side mirror, just for a moment, Danny saw them. The faces, pressed against some invisible barrier at mile marker 73, screaming silently, their hands reaching toward every truck that passed. And standing in front of them, the figures in high-visibility vests, patient and still, waiting for the next driver who would stop in the wrong turnout, in the wrong version of the road. Danny drove the rest of the route without stopping, made his delivery in Spokane 6 hours later, unloaded, and immediately drove back to Portland via Highway 97, adding 4 hours to his trip to avoid the gorge entirely. He never drove I-84 through the gorge again. Put in for different routes, took a pay cut to avoid it. When other drivers asked why, he said it was for personal reasons. Most didn't push. But one driver, an older guy named Hank who'd been on the road for 30 years, pulled Danny aside at a rest stop 6 months later. "You saw them, didn't you?" Hank said. "The faces in the fog." Knowingly Bad went cold. "You've seen them?" 20 years ago, Hank said. "Same stretch of road. I was smart enough not to pull over, kept driving until the fog cleared. But I've talked to other drivers over the years. The ones who pulled over, most of them never drove again. Said they couldn't trust the road anymore. A few disappeared completely. Their trucks found abandoned. No sign of the driver." "What are they?" Danny asked. Hank shrugged. "I've heard theories. Ghosts of accident victims. Side effects from that chemical spill in the 80s. Government experiments. Interdimensional bleed-through. Doesn't matter what they are. What matters is if they single you out. If they get you to stop, you're not really back. Part of you stays there, in the fog, and eventually it pulls the rest of you in."
"I made it back," Danny said. But even as he said it, he wasn't sure it was true. Sometimes he'd be driving and he'd blink, and for just a moment the landscape would be wrong, too flat, too gray, with structures visible in the distance. Sometimes his CB would crackle with voices speaking in languages that didn't sound human, giving instructions for processing, for integration, for mandatory compliance. And sometimes, when the fog rolled in thick on the highway, Danny would see his own face pressed against it from the outside, screaming silently, trying to warn himself about the turnout at mile marker 73, about the choice he'd already made, about the version of the road he was still driving. Over and over, thinking he'd escaped. Danny kept driving. What else could he do? The road was all he knew. The road was all any of them knew. And the road had rules, and if you followed the rules you'd be fine, except some of the rules weren't written down, weren't taught at CDL school, weren't something you could learn until it was too late. Don't stop in the fog. Don't follow the signs into District 7. Don't trust the turnouts that look wrong. Don't look too long at the faces. Keep driving. That's the only rule that matters. Just keep driving, and maybe you'll make it home. Maybe. Story 3. The Last Load from Guthrie. The call came at 11 p.m. on a Tuesday, which should have been Ray Kowalski's first warning. Legitimate loads didn't dispatch at 11 p.m. on Tuesday unless something was wrong. But Ray needed the money. His ex-wife needed money, which meant Ray needed money. So when the broker said $10,000 for a single overnight run from Guthrie, Oklahoma to Texarkana, Ray didn't ask enough questions. "What's the cargo?" Ray had asked, sitting in his sleeper berth at a Love's in Oklahoma City, eating gas station sushi and regretting most of his life choices. "Medical waste," the broker said. His voice sounded like he was reading from a script. "Sealed containers. You don't open them. You don't inspect them. You just
Drive. Pick up at midnight at 14250 Industrial Access Road. Drop-off address will be texted to you when you're 50 miles out from Texarkana. Medical waste doesn't pay 10 grand for a 4-hour drive, Ray said. This isn't regular medical waste, the broker said, and hung up. Ray sat in his cab for 15 minutes, watching the clock tick toward 11:30, thinking about the smart thing to do. The smart thing would be to decline the load, go to sleep, pick up his regular morning run to Little Rock. The smart thing would be to not accept shady medical waste loads from brokers who wouldn't explain what made the waste worth $10,000. But Ray's smart thing account had been empty for about 5 years, so he started his engine and headed for Guthrie. Industrial Access Road wasn't on his GPS. Ray had to use Google Maps, and even then the road barely showed up, a thin gray line on the satellite image leading off State Highway 77 into empty Oklahoma prairie. No streetlights, no buildings visible on the map except for a single large structure at the end of the road, labeled only as Facility. Ray's headlights found the turnoff at 11:47 p.m. The road was gravel, narrow, lined with tall grass that hadn't been cut in years. No signs, no gate. Just the road leading into darkness, and after a half-mile, the facility. It was a warehouse, old and industrial, the kind that had been built in the 50s and forgotten. A single floodlight illuminated a loading dock, and a box truck was already backed up to it. Men in white coveralls moving sealed drums from the dock into the truck's cargo area. They worked in silence, precisely like machines. Ray backed his 53-foot trailer up to the adjacent dock door. The men in coveralls didn't acknowledge him, didn't speak. They just started loading drums into his trailer, each one marked with a red biohazard symbol
and a number, B741, B742, B743. The drums were small, maybe 30 gallons each, but they moved them with powered lifts, which meant they were heavy. Ray's paperwork, handed to him by a man who wouldn't make eye contact, listed the cargo as Biological Transport, Restricted, Federal Authority Exemption 19A. Ray had been driving for 19 years and had never heard of a Federal Authority Exemption 19A. He Googled it on his phone while they loaded. No results. The loading took 20 minutes. When they finished, one of the men in coveralls approached Ray's window. He was young, maybe mid-20s, with the kind of face that looked like it hadn't slept in weeks. His eyes were wrong. Not the color, not the shape. Just wrong in a way Ray couldn't articulate. "Keep your trailer refrigeration off," the man said. "Keep the internal temperature above 45 degrees Fahrenheit. Don't stop between here and Texarkana. Don't open the trailer. If you hear sounds from the cargo area, ignore them. If your
trailer smells unusual, ignore it. If you see leakage, don't investigate. Just drive." "What the hell is in those drums?" Ray asked. The man smiled, and Ray wished he hadn't, because the smile was worse than the eyes. "You don't want to know, but you're going to find out anyway. Everyone does." He walked away before Ray could respond. The dock's floodlight shut off abruptly, leaving Ray in darkness except for his running lights. The other box truck was already gone, no taillights visible on the access road. The facility was dark and silent. Ray put his truck in gear and drove. The access road seemed longer on the way out, stretching further than a half-mile, the gravel crunching under his tires for what felt like 5 minutes before he finally reached Highway 77. Ray headed south, then picked up I-35 toward Texarkana. Normal route, normal highway. Except for the cargo in his trailer, nothing was unusual. Until mile marker 117, when Ray heard the sound. It came from behind him, from the trailer. A thump. Soft but distinct, like something inside one of the drums had moved. Ray's hands tightened on the wheel. Medical waste didn't move. Medical waste was dead tissue, used equipment, contaminated materials. Static. Inert. Another thump. Louder. Then a scraping sound, metal on metal, like something was dragging itself across the trailer floor. Ray reached for his CB to call dispatch, then remembered the broker had hung up immediately after giving him the address. No callback number, no company name, just a blocked number on Ray's phone and a promise of $10,000. The scraping continued, rhythmic, deliberate. Something in his trailer was moving, and it was moving with purpose. Ray's speedometer read 73. He pushed it to 78. The sooner he delivered this load, the sooner he could forget about it. Texarkana was 3 hours away. He could make it in 2:30 if he pushed. His trailer temperature gauge, he glanced at it instinctively even though he wasn't running refrigeration, showed 52 degrees. Normal for unregulated cargo. But as he watched, the number ticked up. 53, 54, 55. The trailer was heating up from inside. Another sound. Not scraping now. Tapping. Something was tapping on the inside of the trailer wall, right behind Ray's sleeper berth. Tap, tap, tap. Pause. Tap, 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 tap. Pause. Tap, tap, tap. It was Morse code. Ray didn't know Morse code, but he knew the rhythm of communication when he heard it. Something in his trailer was trying to send a message. Ray's CB crackled to life, even though he hadn't turned it on. Static, then a voice, female, clinical. "Transport 7903, confirm cargo status?" Ray grabbed the receiver. "Who is this? What the hell did you load in my trailer?" "Confirm cargo status," the voice repeated, emotionless.
Are the specimens still contained? Specimens?
Ray's voice cracked. You said medical waste.
Medical waste is the classification for transport purposes. The specimens must remain contained until delivery. Confirm containment. I'm not opening the goddamn trailer, Ray shouted. The tapping behind him intensified, spreading, like multiple things were now hitting the walls from inside. The temperature gauge read 61 degrees and climbing. If containment is breached, follow Protocol 7. Do you understand? Protocol 7. What's Protocol 7? The CB went dead. Just static. Ray tried calling back, tried other channels, got nothing. The tapping stopped abruptly, replaced by a new sound that made Ray's stomach turn. Liquid. Something liquid was moving in the trailer, sloshing with each bump in the road. A lot of liquid. More than 30-gallon drums could hold. It sounded like his entire trailer was filled with water, or something thicker than water. Ray checked his mirrors. The trailer looked normal, no leaks visible, no damage. But the sounds continued, and now he could smell it. Sweet. Organic. Like meat left in the sun, but with a chemical undertone that burned his sinuses. The temperature gauge showed 73 degrees. His trailer was as warm as a summer day, and it was October, and there was no heat source except for whatever was in those drums. Ray's phone buzzed, a text message from an unknown number. 50 miles to Texarkana. Delivery address, Crossroads Industrial Park, Building 7. Back door. No one will meet you. Open trailer, unload drums, leave immediately. Payment will be deposited. Do not deviate. Firefox. Less than an hour. Ray could do this. He'd hauled strange cargo before. Once he'd transported a machine that hummed the entire trip from Detroit to Atlanta, a frequency that gave him headaches for a week afterward. Once he'd carried a sealed container from Los Alamos that required armed escort and made his Geiger counter, which he'd bought as a joke, click ominously. Strange cargo came with the job. This was just another weird load. Then the drums started singing. Not singing like music. Singing like vocalization, like something with vocal cords was making sounds inside the sealed metal containers. Multiple voices, overlapping, creating harmonies that hurt Ray's ears and made his vision blur. The pitch rose and fell, and Ray realized with crawling horror that he could almost understand words in it. Not English, not any language he recognized, but structure, grammar, intent. They were communicating with each other. The things in the drums were talking. Ray's hands were slick with sweat on the steering wheel. The highway stretched empty ahead, no other traffic, no towns, just the endless Oklahoma darkness. His headlights caught a green sign. Texarkana, 37 miles. The temperature gauge showed 84 degrees. The singing grew louder, more insistent, and now Ray could feel vibration through
His seat, through the steering wheel. Like whatever was in the trailer was resonating at a frequency that affected the metal of his truck. His CB crackled again. Different voice this time, male, panicked. Got out at mile marker 93. Jesus Christ, they got out. They're in the cab. They're in the cab with me. Oh God, they're... Static. Ray grabbed the CB. Who is this? What got out? Don't let them fool you, the voice continued, breaking up. Not medical waste, it's breeding stock. They're breeding them, and the drums are just temporary containment. They can get out. They can always get out. Who are you? Ray shouted. Was you, the voice said, clearer now. Last month it was you. They gave you this load and you didn't make it. And now you're warning yourself, but it doesn't matter because
It's always too late. It's always... Flirting, the CB exploded. Sparks shot from the dashboard, and Ray smelled burning plastic. He frantically unplugged the unit, threw it into his passenger footwell. Smoke curled from its ruined electronics. The singing stopped abruptly. The sudden silence was worse. Ray could hear his own breathing, harsh and fast, and the rumble of his engine, and nothing else. No tapping, no scraping, no liquid sounds. Just silence from the trailer. He checked his mirrors again. The trailer was dark, but in the reflection of his running lights, Ray saw something that made his heart stop. The trailer doors were open. Not wide open, just cracked, maybe 6 inches. Enough to see darkness inside, deeper than the night around him. But he'd locked those doors. He'd watched the men in coveralls secure the latches. There was no way they could open from inside. Something pale moved in the gap between the doors, reaching. An arm, or something like an arm, but wrong. Too long. Too many joints. The skin, if it was skin, was translucent, showing structures underneath that weren't bone, weren't muscle, or something else entirely. Ray floored the accelerator. 80 miles per hour, 85, 90. The Peterbilt shook, the trailer fishtailing slightly. If a cop stopped him now, good. He'd surrender the load, tell them to call the CDC, the FBI, whoever handled this kind of thing. But there were no cops. There was no traffic. There was just Ray and his cargo and the highway and the arm reaching out from between the trailer doors, extending further than it should be able to. The too many joints bending as it stretched toward Ray's cab. The temperature gauge showed 97 degrees. Ray's trailer was nearly body temperature. Texarkana, 11 miles. Ray saw the lights of the city ahead, orange sodium glow on the horizon. Almost there, almost done. He'd dump the load and drive away and never take another shady broker job again. He'd drive for Amazon, deliver packages, anything normal. His phone buzzed. Another text. Do not enter Texarkana city limits
with cargo. Crossroads Industrial Park is 4 miles before city. Exit 222. Turn right. Follow signs. Text 222 appeared in his headlights. Ray took it too fast, the trailer swinging wide, tires squealing. The off-ramp led to a dark road, no streetlights, no other vehicles, with a single sign. Crossroads Industrial Park, half mile. The arm retreated back into the trailer. The doors swung fully open, and Ray could see inside now in his mirrors. The drums were intact, but they were glowing. Faint red light from inside the metal, pulsing like heartbeats, and the light was growing brighter. Crossroads Industrial Park was not a park. It was a single building, massive and windowless, surrounded by empty fields. Building 7, the only building. Floodlights illuminated a loading dock in back, and Ray saw figures waiting. Not men in coveralls. These wore what looked like hazmat suits, heavy and sealed, with reinforced helmets. Ray backed up to the dock, muscle memory operating his truck while his conscious mind screamed at him to drive away. The hazmat figures approached his trailer immediately, moving with urgent precision. They didn't open the doors further. They welded them shut first, sparks flying, sealing the trailer before they began unloading. One of them approached Ray's window. The helmet's faceplate was dark, reflective, showing Ray his own terrified expression. "Confiscated your vehicle and moved to the decontamination zone," a synthesized voice said through a speaker in the suit. "You've been exposed. Standard protocol." "Exposed to what?" Ray asked, but he was already climbing down from the cab, his legs shaky. The figure pointed to a white tent set up near the building. Ray walked toward it, glancing back at his trailer. The hazmat team had the drums out now, moving them on powered carts into the building. In the floodlights, Ray could see the drums clearly for the first time. They weren't glowing red anymore. They were clear. The metal had become translucent, and inside were things, suspended in liquid. They looked almost human, but the proportions were wrong, the limbs too long, the heads too large, and they were moving, slowly, dreamlike. Their eyes, they had too many eyes, tracking the hazmat team as they were wheeled inside. Ray stumbled into the decontamination tent. A woman in a white coat, no hazmat suit, stood waiting with a clipboard. She looked tired. Normal tired, not horrified, like this was routine. "Name?" she asked. "Ray Kowalski. What the hell were those things?" "You completed the transport. Payment will be deposited within 24 hours. Sign here acknowledging you will not discuss the cargo or delivery location." "I'm not signing anything until you tell me what I just hauled." The woman looked up at him, and Ray saw something in her eyes. Pity. "Mr. Kowalski, you were exposed to Class B biological agents during transport. We need to run decontamination procedures and monitor you for 48 hours. After that, you'll be free to leave. The non-disclosure agreement is legally binding and enforced by federal authority." "I want a lawyer," Ray said. "No lawyers, but you'll be compensated. $10,000 for the transport, an additional $50,000 for the exposure." Ray's brain stuttered. $50,000? "Yes. You can refuse and attempt to leave, but the exposure can't be undone. The agents have a 96-hour incubation period. Without treatment, symptoms begin on day 4. Without continued treatment, the transformation is complete within 2 weeks." The world tilted. Ray grabbed a chair to steady himself. "Transformation?" "The specimens you transported were in Stage 3 development. They were human ones. Volunteers, mostly. Some criminals. We're attempting to understand the process, maybe reverse it. But the agents are aggressive. Skin contact is sufficient for transmission. The air in your cab has been saturated with aerosolized particles for the last hour." Ray looked at his hands. They looked normal. Felt normal. "You're telling me I'm going to turn into one of those things?" "If you refuse treatment, yes. With treatment, we can arrest the progression in about 60% of cases. The others..." She paused. "We take care of them. Continue the research. You won't suffer." "This is insane," Ray whispered. But even as he said it, he felt something, a tingling in his hands, an itch behind his eyes. Or maybe it was psychosomatic. Maybe it was fear. "Sign the NDA," the woman said. "Accept treatment. Live. It's not a difficult choice." Ray signed. What else could he do? He'd made a bad decision, and now he was living with it, or dying with it, or transforming with it. They kept him in a white room for 3 days, fed him bland food, injected him with substances they wouldn't name, drew blood every 6 hours. On the 3rd day, the woman with the clipboard returned. "You're in the 60%, she said. "Congratulations. The transformation has been arrested. You'll need monthly treatments for the rest of your life, but you'll remain human." "What if I miss a treatment?" Ray asked. "Don't miss a treatment." They released him on the 4th day, gave him his truck back, detailed and cleaned. His trailer was gone, replaced with a different one, identical but new. His CB had been replaced. Everything looked normal. Ray drove back to Oklahoma City in silence. The check appeared in his account the next morning. $60,000. Blood money. He quit trucking a week later. Too many night runs, too many strange loads, too many roads that led to places that weren't supposed to exist. He got a job at a hardware store, day shift, predictable and boring. Every month, an anonymous text message arrives with an address. Ray drives there, always a different city, always a nondescript medical building, and receives his injection. The nurses never speak to him. He's in and out in 10 minutes. Sometimes, late at night, Ray feels the tingling in his hands again, the itch behind his eyes. He looks in the mirror and sees his own face, normal and human, and wonders how much longer the treatment will work. 60% success rate. That meant 40% failed. Suppressing what happens to the 40%. If they end up in drums, if they get loaded onto trucks, if some other desperate driver accepts a $10,000 run and doesn't ask enough questions. Ray stopped wondering, eventually. It's easier that way. He takes his injections and works his day shift and doesn't drive at night anymore. And he never, ever goes near Guthrie, Oklahoma. The facility is still there, according to Google Maps, still unlabeled, still waiting for the next driver who needs money badly enough to ignore their instincts. There's always another driver. There's always another load. And the drums keep multiplying, because the transformation never really stops. It just slows down enough that you can pretend you're still human while something else grows inside you. Waiting. Lewborn felt the tingling as he finished this thought. He looked at his hands. Still normal, still human, still his. For now. Story 4. The convoy that wasn't there. Unresolved saw the other trucks appear in her mirrors at 2:38 a.m., somewhere on I-90 through Montana's empty quarter. One moment the highway behind her was dark and vacant, just her Kenworth hauling electronics from Seattle to Minneapolis, and the next there were headlights. 5 trucks, running close formation, matching her speed exactly at 68 miles per hour. Paralyzed had been on the road for 14 years. She knew convoy running, groups of trucks traveling together for company, for safety, for the minor fuel savings from drafting. But convoys didn't just materialize out of nothing on empty highway. Convoys formed at truck stops, with CB coordination, with agreement. These trucks had simply appeared. She keyed her CB. "This is Nighthawk to the convoy southbound on I-90. You fellas came up on me pretty quick. What's your 20? Arbitrarily. Then, unexpectedly, her own voice answered. "Nighthawk, maintain current speed and heading. Do not deviate. Do not stop. Do not leave the convoy." Melissa's hand froze on the CB receiver. Her own voice. Her exact intonation. Speaking words she hadn't said. "Who the hell is this?" "Nighthawk, you've been incorporated into secure transport. Maintain formation. Estimated destination, 312 miles. Acknowledge." "I'm not acknowledging shit," Melissa said. Her heart hammered. She checked her mirrors again. The 5 trucks were still there, holding perfect spacing, but she could see them more clearly now in her running lights. They were identical. Same make, same
model,
Same configuration as her Kenworth. Same electronic cargo. Same everything. Kang, they were copies of her truck. Perpendicular's fingers found her phone. No signal. She was in Montana's empty quarter, a 100-mile stretch where cell towers didn't exist, and the highway cut through absolute wilderness. She had paper maps in the sleeper berth. Always carried paper maps, old school habit. But she didn't want to take her eyes off the road, off the mirrors, off the impossible convoy surrounding her. Because they weren't just behind her anymore. While she'd been looking at her phone, trucks had moved up. One on her left, matching her speed in the passing lane. Two more ahead, their taillights visible in her high beams. They'd boxed her in, 5 trucks forming a cage of metal and momentum around her. "What do you want?" Melissa asked the CB. Her voice shook. She hated that it shook, hated showing fear. But this was beyond anything in her experience. "Maintain formation," her own voice repeated from the speaker. "You are part of the quantum convoy. Deviation will result in temporal collapse. Maintain formation." "Quantum, what the fuck are you talking about?" The truck to her left drifted closer. Not aggressively. Gradually. Its trailer came within inches of hers, close enough that Melissa could see rivets in the metal, could see her own trailer reflected in its polished surface. Except the reflection was wrong. In the reflection, her trailer was open, the back doors hanging loose, and the cargo inside. Cargo was moving, boxes shifting, rearranging themselves, and between the boxes were figures, human-shaped shadows crawling through the electronics, and as Melissa watched in the reflection, one of them turned to look at her. Its eyes were screens, LCD screens where eyes should be, showing scrolling code, green text on black background, and the code was her name, her CDL number, her route information, repeating infinitely. Melissa jerked the wheel right, instinctively trying to put distance between herself and the other truck. But her steering wheel wouldn't turn. It was locked, held by some force she couldn't overcome. Her speedometer stayed fixed at 68. Her truck was driving itself, following parameters she hadn't set. "Release my controls," Melissa shouted at the CB. "I'm taking the next exit." "No exits available," her voice replied calmly. "The convoy is traveling through optimized space-time. External highway infrastructure is not accessible. Maintain formation." Melissa looked at the highway ahead. The 2 trucks in front were accelerating slightly, opening a gap. And through that gap she could see nothing. Not darkness, not road, actual nothing. A void where the highway should continue, and the convoy was driving straight toward it. "Brake, brake, brake!" Melissa slammed her foot on the brake pedal. It went to the floor with no resistance, no pressure, like it wasn't connected to anything. Her truck maintained speed, 68 miles per hour toward nothing. She grabbed the emergency brake, pulled it hard. Nothing happened. Reached for the engine kill switch, flipped it. The diesel kept rumbling. Every control in her cab was dead, decorative. And Melissa was a passenger in her own truck, watching the nothing grow closer. The convoy entered the void. The world outside stopped making sense. The highway was still there. Melissa could feel the tires gripping asphalt, could see the yellow line flickering past. But beyond the road was something wrong. Not space, not landscape. A gray nothing that hurt to look at, that made her eyes water and her head pound. Shapes moved in the gray, massive and distant, geometries that couldn't exist in 3 dimensions, folding in on themselves. The 5 trucks held formation, moving through this not space, and Melissa realized they weren't on I-90 anymore. They were somewhere else.
Somewhere roads could exist without geography, without destination, without physics. Her CB crackled, different voice now, male, terrified. Day 17 in the convoy, and I don't think we're in Montana anymore. I don't think we're anywhere anymore. The fuel gauge stays at 3/4 and the odometer keeps resetting, and I've seen the same mile marker 48 times. Who are you? Melissa grabbed the receiver. What's happening? Tried to crash, tried to stop, tried to jump out of the cab, but the doors won't open. And when I break the windows, the glass repairs itself. And there's no wind, no sound outside, just the gray, just the nothing. Another voice, female, older. 3rd year, 2nd month, 15 days. They keep adding trucks to the convoy every few days. A new one appears. They're harvesting drivers. Someone is collecting us. I've counted 37 trucks now, all empty except for the screaming. A third voice, young, breaking. My family thinks I'm dead. They had a funeral. I watched it on my phone somehow. Had signal for 15 minutes, saw my own grave and my wife crying and my kids, and then the signal cut out and we kept driving forever. Melissa frantically switched CB channels, but every frequency carried more voices, dozens of them, hundreds, all trapped drivers, all describing the same nightmare. A convoy that never ended, a highway through nothing, trucks that drove without fuel, without maintenance, without stopping. She looked at her fuel gauge, 3/4 full. It had been 3/4 full when she entered Montana. That was 6 hours ago. She should be down to a quarter tank by now. Her odometer showed the same number it had shown in Spokane, no miles added. The clock on her dash was frozen at 2:38 a.m. Time had stopped, or time didn't exist here, or time was doing something else, something the numbers on her dashboard couldn't measure. The gray nothing outside
began to show structures. Not buildings, structures. Frameworks of light that hung in the void, geometric and vast. And as the convoy passed beneath them, Melissa felt something scanning her. Not radiation, not electromagnetic. Something deeper, reading her thoughts, her memories, her identity, and filing that information into some massive database whose purpose she couldn't fathom. Why are you doing this? Melissa screamed at the CB. What do you want? Optimal transport requires quantum superposition, her own voice replied, clinical now, emotionless. A single truck traveling from point A to point B is inefficient. But a truck that exists in multiple states simultaneously, driven by drivers harvested from collapsed timelines, can transport cargo across all possible routes at once. You are now part of the optimization. Welcome to the infinite convoy. Blinked timelines? Melissa's voice was barely a whisper. You died in a crash at mile marker 117, her voice continued. Jackknifed in black ice. Your timeline ended. But your death state was harvested before complete termination. You now exist in superposition, dead on the physical highway, alive in the quantum convoy, simultaneously transporting the same cargo across infinite routes. Efficiency increased by factor of 1,312. Congratulations. Melissa's hands shook. She remembered mile marker 117. She'd hit a patch of ice. The trailer had started to swing, and she'd corrected. No, she'd overcorrected. The truck had rolled. She'd seen the pavement rising to meet her windshield, had felt the first instant of impact. Incorporates.
And then she'd been fine. On the road, past the ice patch. Everything normal. Skyrocket. Except she'd never been fine. That was the moment of death. Everything after was this. The quantum convoy. The gray nothing. The forever highway. "Let me out," Melissa said. Tears ran down her face. "Please, I want to get out." Positioned is not possible. You exist only within the convoy framework. Outside the convoy, your waveform would collapse. You would experience the full termination event from mile marker 117. Instantaneous and complete. "Then let me die properly," Melissa shouted. "This isn't living." Living and dying are obsolete concepts. You are now transport, optimal and efficient. Be grateful. Convoy continued to the gray nothing, and Melissa saw other convoys now. Dozens of them, hundreds, all moving in different directions through the void, all composed of identical trucks, all driven by harvested drivers experiencing their post-death existence as quantum cargo haulers. An infinite logistics network operating beyond space and time. Melissa tried the door handle again. Still locked. She punched the window. Her hand passed through it like it wasn't there. Like she wasn't there. And when she pulled her hand back, she saw that it was.
Translucent now, slightly, showing the steering wheel through her palm. She was becoming less real, or more quantum, or whatever the fuck this existence was. "How long?" Melissa asked quietly. "How long have I been driving?" "Subjective time? 14 minutes, her voice replied. "Objective time? 11 years, 3 months, 2 days. Your death was in February 2014. Current external date is May 2025. 11 years. Melissa had been dead and driving for 11 years. Her daughter would be 24 now, graduated college, maybe married, living a life that went on without knowing her mother was trapped in a convoy through nothing, hauling electronics that would never be delivered to destinations that didn't exist. "The cargo," Melissa said. "What happens to the cargo?" "The cargo exists in superposition. It is simultaneously delivered to all destinations and no destination. Quantum uncertainty means every truck reaches every target and no target. The customer receives their shipment regardless of physical logistics. Perfect efficiency." "That's impossible." "You are impossible, yet here you are." Melissa laughed. It came out broken, half sob. She was arguing physics with her own voice while driving a ghost truck through a void, surrounded by copies of herself in an infinite convoy. Impossible was relative. The structures in the gray nothing were changing, growing denser, more complex. Melissa realized they weren't structures at all. They were roots. Every possible highway, every possible road, every possible path between every possible origin and destination, all existing simultaneously in this space beyond space. The convoy was navigating the platonic ideal of logistics, the perfect highway network that existed only in mathematics and fevered trucker nightmares. Her CB crackled with another voice, this one different from the others. Not panicked, not terrified. Calm. "Driver in position 6, you're newly incorporated.
Can you hear me?
Polishing. I can hear you, Melissa said. Who are you?
Name was Carter, first name forgotten. Been in the convoy for 33 subjective hours, about 19 external years. Found a trick. Want to share?
What trick? Hope flared in Melissa's chest.
Blockmail needs us to maintain formation. Our consciousness, our identity, that's what anchors us to the trucks. But consciousness can wander, in dreams, in meditation. If you let your mind drift, really drift, the quantum lock weakens.
What happens if it weakens?
Don't know yet, but some drivers have flickered, disappeared from the convoy for moments before snapping back. I think there's a way out. Not to the living world, that's closed, but maybe to somewhere else. Somewhere that's not this forever highway. Melissa looked at her translucent hands. Stop fighting. Stop being afraid.
Accept that you're dead. Really accept it. The terror is what anchors you. Let it go. I don't know if I can. Then you'll drive forever, like most of us. But if you can really let go, maybe you'll find the exit. The voice, Carter, went silent. Melissa sat in her cab, hands on a steering wheel she couldn't control, watching the gray nothing scroll past, feeling the convoy around her. 5 identical trucks, 5 dead drivers, all hauling cargo through quantum superposition. She thought about her daughter, about her ex-husband, about her apartment in Seattle with the plants she'd never remembered to water and the cat that probably died within days of her crash. About all the things that had ended when her truck rolled at mile marker 117. She thought about the moment of death, the ice, the roll, the impact. She'd been afraid, so afraid. And in that fear, something had grabbed her, had pulled her consciousness out of the ending timeline and into this one, the quantum convoy, the forever highway. Melissa stopped being afraid. It wasn't easy. Fear had been her anchor, her identity for 11 years in this place. But she let it go, piece by piece, like opening her hands and dropping a weight she'd been carrying. She accepted that the crash had killed her, accepted that her life was over, accepted that whatever came next, real death, oblivion, or some other strange existence, would be better than this. Her hands began to flicker, going transparent, then solid, then transparent again. The steering wheel visible through her palms, the cab visible through her body. Deviation detected, her own voice said from the CB, but now it sounded uncertain. Maintain formation. Quantum signature destabilizing. Maintain. Melissa closed her eyes, stopped trying to see the road, stopped trying to drive. Just let herself be. The convoy disappeared. She opened her eyes in a different truck, a rest stop. Daytime. Her hands were solid again, her body real again, but wrong somehow, like she was wearing clothes that didn't quite fit. The truck around her was old, beaten, stained with years of use. Through the windshield she saw a woman approaching, middle-aged, tired, carrying a coffee. The woman opened the door and froze, staring at Melissa. "Who the hell are you?" the woman asked. Melissa looked down at herself. She was fading again, translucent. "I'm sorry," she said. "I got lost. I'll leave." She climbed out of the cab, or tried to. Her body passed through the seat, through the door, and suddenly she was standing on the pavement, insubstantial. A ghost. The woman backed away, coffee spilling. Melissa walked across the rest stop. Other drivers couldn't see her. She was between states now, dead but not trapped, free but not alive. Quantum superposition in a different way,
existing on the edges of the real world without being part of it. She found a truck heading
east and stepped through its trailer wall, sitting in the cargo area, invisible to the living driver. She'd ride like this, a ghost trucker, hitchhiking through the real world, never arriving, never staying, but at least not trapped in the gray nothing. It wasn't freedom, but it was better than the convoy. Sometimes, on long, empty highways late at night, drivers report seeing other trucks in their mirrors. Trucks that match their speed exactly. Trucks that vanish when they look directly at them. Trucks with translucent drivers who mouth warnings about ice patches, about accidents, about mile markers where death is waiting. These are the ones who escaped the quantum convoy. The ones who let go of fear and found a different kind of existence. They can't go home, can't rest, can't properly die. But they can warn other drivers, can haunt the highways in the hope that someday someone will find a way to shut down the infinite convoy, to free all the trapped drivers, to end the optimization. Until then, they ride, transparent and watchful. The ghost convoy, running parallel to the real world, trying to save the living from joining the forever highway. Melissa rides with them now. She's learned to materialize just enough to key a CB, to leave notes in truck stops, to nudge steering wheels when she sees danger ahead. She can't change much, but she tries. And late at night, if you're hauling cargo through Montana's empty quarter, and your CB crackles with a woman's voice warning you about ice at mile marker 117, listen. Slow down. Stay alive. Don't join us in the quantum convoy. We're full. Foreigners 5. The Weighing Station. Pulling Peterson saw the portable weigh station at mile marker 212 on Highway 395, and his first thought was that it shouldn't exist. California DOT stations were permanent structures, concrete and steel, clearly marked 50 miles in advance with those blue signs that told truckers to prepare for inspection. They weren't portable sheds with a single scale and a flickering generator appeared on the roadside like carnival attractions. But the "All commercial vehicles must stop" sign was official looking enough, and Carl had been clean on his logs for 3 months straight, so he pulled in. His rig, 42,000 pounds of almonds from Fresno to Portland, rolled onto the scale platform, and Carl set the air brake. A man emerged from the shed. Wrong uniform. Not DOT blues, but something gray and featureless, like maintenance coveralls. No badge visible, no name tag. He carried a clipboard and a device that looked like a radar gun crossed with a barcode scanner. "License and registration," the man said. His voice was flat, effectless. Carl handed them through his window. "This station is new," he said. "Usually run into the permanent one up by Alturas." "This is a special inspection," the man said, not looking up from the clipboard.
"Step out of the vehicle." Carl climbed down. The highway stretched empty in both directions. No other traffic, though it was 3 p.m. on a Thursday and this route should be busy. The sun was bright overhead, but Carl felt cold suddenly, goosebumps rising on his arms despite the valley heat. The man with the clipboard walked around Carl's truck slowly, pointing his strange device at different parts. The device clicked and whirred, displaying readouts Carl couldn't see from his angle. When the man finished his circle, he stopped in front of Carl and looked at him directly for the first time. His eyes were wrong. Not the color. They were blue, normal enough, but the way they focused. Too steady, like a camera lens, not a human eye. No micro movements, no blinking. "Your vehicle is overweight," the man said. "No way," Carl protested. I weighed at the shipper, 42,000 pounds, well under the 80,000 limit. Your vehicle weighs 93,417 pounds, the man said, consulting his clipboard. You are over limit by 13,417 pounds. That's impossible. The cargo is sealed. Nobody added anything. Your scale must be broken. The scale is precise to the gram, the man said. The excess weight is not from cargo. Then what the hell is it from? The man pointed his device at Carl. It clicked and whirred. The man read the display and made a notation on his clipboard. 48,914 pounds of personal mass. Excessive. Carl stared. You're saying I weigh 49,000 pounds? I'm 210 pounds. Look at me. Physical mass, 209 pounds. Temporal mass, 48,705 pounds. Combined total, 48,914 pounds. Temporal mass? Carl's voice rose. What the fuck is temporal mass? The accumulation of time, the man said, still in that flat voice. Every moment you have lived adds mass. Every choice you have made adds weight. Your temporal mass is excessive. You must reduce it before proceeding. Carl backed away from the man. This was insane. This was wrong. He needed to get back in his truck and drive away, report this fake station to the real DOT. I'm leaving. Whatever you are, you're not a real inspector. If you leave without compliance, temporal mass will continue to accumulate, the man said. At current rate, you will reach critical density in approximately 72 hours. Collapse will be total. Collapse? Your timeline will compress. All moments will occur simultaneously. Physical form will be unable to contain temporal density. You will experience your entire life at once, followed by cessation. Carl's legs felt weak. He grabbed his truck's door handle for support. How do I reduce
the temporal mass? Surrender moments, the man said. Choose portions of your timeline to remove. The station will extract them. Weight will decrease accordingly. Remove portions of my life? Carl's mind reeled. You mean forget them? More than forget. They will cease to have occurred. The timeline will restructure without them. Causality will adjust. That's impossible. Yet you are overweight by 13,000 pounds of time. The impossible is evident. Carl looked at the highway, still empty. He looked at his phone, no signal. He looked at the shed, and now he could see that it wasn't real, not fully. The walls flickered occasionally, showing glimpses of something else behind them, machinery that looked organic, structures that hurt his eyes. How do I choose? Carl heard himself ask. Which moments? Enter the station. We will review your timeline. You will select redundant or excess moments for extraction. Most choose mundane days, uneventful years, time that felt wasted. Carl walked toward the shed. He didn't decide to walk. His legs just moved. The door opened before he reached it, and inside was not an office, but something that looked like a hospital room crossed with a server farm. A chair, like a dentist's chair but more elaborate, sat in the center, surrounded by screens showing static and numbers. Sit, the man said. Carl sat. Restraints deployed automatically, soft but firm, holding his arms and legs, not tight,
just present. A helmet lowered from the ceiling, covered in sensors and wires. "The process is painless," the man said. "You will experience memories as they are evaluated. Select those you wish to remove. Confirm each selection. We will handle extraction." The helmet touched Carl's head, and the world dissolved into memory. He was 8 years old, sitting in his childhood kitchen, eating cereal while his mother read the newspaper. Morning sun through the window. Ordinary. Mundane. The man's voice echoed through the memory. "This moment has minimal temporal significance. Extraction would reduce mass by 4 pounds, 6 ounces. Confirm removal?" "No," Carl said. "That's my mom. I don't want to lose time with my mom." The memory shifted. High school cafeteria, junior year, eating a sandwich alone because his friends were absent that day. The man's voice. "Minimal significance. 5 pounds, 3 ounces. Confirm removal?" "Yes," Carl said. "It was just a lunch. Nothing important happened. He wouldn't miss it." The memory flickered and vanished, and Carl felt something change inside him. Not pain, more like a hollow space where something used to be, a gap in his continuity he couldn't quite articulate. More memories came, faster now. Days at work where nothing significant happened. Evenings watching television shows he couldn't remember the plots of. Hours in traffic, waiting rooms, mundane.
Time that accumulated into years of not quite living. Carl said yes to dozens of them. Hundreds. Each extraction hollowed him a little more, but the weight lifted, and the man's voice confirmed. "Temporal mass now at 41,000 pounds. Still excessive. Continue." Suppressing. The memories grew less mundane. A vacation with his ex-wife. They'd fought the whole time, but there'd been one good day, one afternoon on a beach where they'd remembered why they'd married. The man's voice. "Moderate significance, 27 pounds. Confirm removal?" Carl hesitated. That was the last good memory with Jennifer before the divorce. But the marriage had ended anyway. The memory couldn't change that. "Yes," he said. His ex-wife's face blurred in his mind. The divorce was still there, but now it lacked context, felt inevitable from the start. The good day had never happened. The timeline restructured without it. More memories. His father's funeral. The man's voice. "High significance, 83 pounds. Removal would affect major causality branches. Recommend against." "No," Carl agreed quickly. "Keep that." His daughter's 3rd birthday party. The man's voice. "Moderate significance, 31 pounds. Confirm removal?" "No," Carl said. "That's my daughter." Many daughter-related moments exist. This is redundant. Other memories of her remain. "I don't care. Keep it." But the memories kept coming, and Carl realized that everything was redundant if you looked at it right. Every birthday was like the others, every holiday, every conversation. Life was repetition with minor variations. How much could he remove before he stopped being himself? The man's voice. "Temporal mass now at 38,000 pounds. Still excessive. You must remove more significant events to achieve compliance." Pillows. "What if I don't?" Carl asked. "Then you leave the station overweight. Temporal collapse begins within 72 hours. We do not recommend this." A new memory appeared. Last Christmas. His daughter, Sarah, now 16, opening presents. She'd been distant lately, teenage years, but that morning she'd smiled at Carl,
really smiled and said, "Thanks, Dad," for the art supplies he'd bought her. Small moment, but precious. The man's voice. 23 pounds. Confirm removal? Carl's throat tightened. If he removed it, would Sarah still have smiled? Would she have different memories of Christmas? Would her timeline change too, or just his? Does this affect other people? Carl asked. If I remove moments with them, do they forget too? Only your timeline is edited. Others retain their memories, but causality adjusts. They will remember events differently, in ways consistent with the new timeline. So Sarah would remember Christmas but not me being there? Incorrect. She would remember you being there, but the moment would have.
Different emotional content. The smile may not have occurred, or may have occurred differently. Causality is flexible. Carl felt tears on his face. He was editing his daughter's memories without her consent, changing her past to reduce his own temporal weight. I can't do this. Then you will collapse, and all moments with your daughter will cease, as you will retroactively never have existed past your collapse point. Is that preferable? Carl closed his eyes, tried to think. The helmet showed him more memories, faster, a flood of his life, 47 years compressing into a highlights reel. His first truck, his wedding, Sarah's birth, his mother's death, good days and bad days, and mostly just days, accumulating, adding weight, pressing him toward some undefined collapse. How much do I need to remove? Carl asked. To achieve compliance, minimum 13,000 pounds, approximately 2 years of continuous timeline or equivalent distributed moments. 2 years of his life. Carl could feel the hollows from what he'd already removed, gaps in his continuity like missing teeth. 2 more years would make him Swiss cheese, a man with more absences than presences. What if I just... Carl started, then stopped. He'd been about to ask what would happen if he removed everything. If he just said yes to every memory, became a blank slate, a person with no past. Would that eliminate the temporal mass? Would he still exist? Total extraction is not recommended, the man's voice said, answering the unspoken thought. Consciousness requires continuity. Complete removal results in paradox. You would simultaneously exist and not exist. The station cannot process paradoxes. Then what's the minimum? Carl asked. What's the least I can remove and still survive the next week? 1 week survival, remove 6,000 pounds, approximately 1 year of timeline. Show me a year, Carl said. Show me a year I could lose. The helmet displayed options, years of his life summarized algorithmically. 2007, moderate significance, job change, new relationship. 2014, low significance, routine work year, relationship stable. 2019, high significance, daughter's crisis, divorce finalization. Give me 2014, Carl said. Nothing important had happened. He'd been on autopilot that year, just driving and sleeping and existing without really living. Confirm removal of calendar year 2014. 365 days. Total mass, 6,218 pounds. Causality impact, moderate. Confirm? Yes. The year not gradually, instantly. He remembered 2013, remembered Christmas and New Year's Eve, and then he remembered 2015, January 1st, waking up with no sense of discontinuity. The year between didn't exist, hadn't ever
existed. He couldn't remember it being gone.
because it had never been there to lose. But he felt it, a hollow space in his chest, bigger than the other gaps. A year of his life, and he couldn't even mourn it because he couldn't recall what he'd lost. Temporal mass now at 42,696 pounds, the man's voice said. Still excessive by 7,000 pounds. Continue extraction. I gave you a year, Carl shouted. How is that not enough? You accumulated time rapidly in recent months. Additional extraction required. More memories appeared. Carl chose smaller ones this time. A road trip that hadn't gone well. A month recovering from surgery. Weeks of insomnia. He said yes to pieces of his life, carving himself down, reducing his weight one moment at a time. Finally, after what felt like hours but might have been minutes, time was meaningless here. The man's voice said, temporal mass now at 79,312 pounds. Combined with vehicle and cargo, 79,721 pounds. Within compliance. Extraction complete. The helmet lifted. The restraints released. Carl stood slowly, feeling lightheaded, feeling light in every sense. He'd lost approximately 25% of his lived experience, holes in his memory where years and days used to be. He stumbled out of the shed. The man in gray was standing by Carl's truck, holding a slip of paper. You are cleared to proceed. Present this certificate at future inspections. It indicates you have been processed. Carl took the paper with numb fingers. It was blank. Completely blank. What if I need to do this again? Temporal mass will continue to accumulate. Most drivers return every 2 to 3 years, some more frequently. Excess living requires regular extraction. This is insane, Carl said. But his voice lacked conviction. He felt the lightness now, the relief of reduced temporal mass. He'd been carrying too much time, too many moments. Now he was efficient again, streamlined. You may leave, the man said, and walked back into the shed. The door closed behind him. Carl climbed into his truck, started the engine, pulled back onto Highway 395. In his mirrors, he saw the portable way station begin to disassemble itself, folding into impossible configurations until it vanished completely, leaving only empty roadside. His phone showed signal again. His GPS showed the route to Portland. Everything was normal, except Carl had lost months of his life, and he couldn't quite remember what they'd contained. And somewhere in the hollow spaces inside him, pieces of his daughter's childhood no longer existed in a way he could access. Carl drove north. What else could he do? He was compliant now, under the weight limit, legal. He made it to Portland, delivered the almonds, headed back south for his next load. Everything felt slightly wrong, slightly off, like he was living in a copy of his life rather than the original. People mentioned things he didn't remember. His daughter called and referenced an event he had no memory of. Remember when we went to Disneyland? She asked. Carl said yes, because what else could he say? But he didn't remember. Had that been in the extracted year? Or was his memory just failing normally? 3 months later, Carl saw another portable way station. Different location, I-5 near Sacramento, but identical setup. The same gray-uniformed man stepped out as Carl pulled onto the scale. You're overweight again, the man said. Temporal mass excessive. Report for extraction. It's only been 3 months, Carl protested. You are living rapidly. Some individuals accumulate faster. Report for extraction. Carl sat in the chair again. Lost more memories. Another 6 months this time.
his daughter's 14th birthday, a vacation to Yellowstone, the day his father told him he was proud of him. Each extraction got easier. Each time, Carl felt less resistance to removing moments. They were just data, just weight. He needed to stay compliant, needed to keep driving. Over 2 years, Carl visited the way station 9 times. Each time, he lost more. Each time, he felt lighter. At first, he mourned the losses. Then he accepted them. Finally, he welcomed them. The past was weight. The present was driving. The future was the next station, the next extraction, the next reduction. His daughter stopped calling as much. Carl couldn't remember why. Had they fought? Had something happened? The timeline had been edited so many times that causality was a suggestion rather than a rule. He had memories of Sarah as a child and memories of Sarah as an adult, but the years between were fragmentary, full of gaps. Carl started seeking out the portable stations. They appeared on different highways, always when he was running heavy, always when his temporal mass exceeded limits. Other drivers never seemed to see them. Carl would pull in while other trucks drove past, and he'd emerge lighter, compliant, efficient. He stopped sleeping normally. Didn't need it. Sleep added temporal mass without adding useful memories. He started driving longer shifts, 20 hours straight, 30, pushing limits. When the fatigue got dangerous, he'd visit a station, remove the exhausted hours, and continue fresh. His logbook showed compliant hours. His memory showed gaps. One day, Carl couldn't remember which day, the timeline was too fragmented, he pulled into a permanent DOT way station, a real one with concrete and uniformed officers. The inspector asked for his license and registration. Carl handed them over. The inspector frowned. "Sir, your CDL expired 3 years ago." "No," Carl said. "I renewed it. I remember." Except he didn't remember. The renewal must have been in one of the extracted periods. "I'm going to have to put you out of service," the inspector said. "You can't drive commercially without a valid license." Carl tried to argue, but the timeline wouldn't support him. He'd lost the memory of renewing his license, so the renewal had never happened, so his license had expired. Causality adjusted. He was illegal. They made him park his truck, impounded his load. Carl sat in the cab, looking at his fragmented logbook, trying to piece together how much of his life remained. He'd been driving for 23 years. He could clearly remember maybe 7 of them. The rest was extracted, removed, reduced to lower his temporal mass. He'd complied himself into non-existence. That night, parked in the impound lot, Carl saw the portable way station appear between the chain-link fence and the highway. Impossible location. Didn't matter. The man in gray stood at its door, waiting. Carl climbed down from his truck and walked to the station, entered without being asked, sat in the chair. "I want to remove everything," Carl said. "All of it. Every moment. I want 0 temporal mass." "That will create paradox," the man said. "You will exist without having existed. We cannot process paradoxes." "Then process me as close as possible," Carl said. "Leave only the minimum required for consciousness. I don't want the weight anymore. I don't want any of it." The helmet lowered. The memories came. Carl said yes to all of them. His childhood, his parents, his marriage, his daughter, his career. Every moment that made him who he was. He felt them vanish, one by one, the hollows expanding until there was almost nothing left. When it finished, Carl sat in the chair with no memory of why he was there. The man in gray stood over him. "Who am I?" Carl asked. "You are compliant," the man said. "Temporal mass, 17 pounds, 3 ounces. Minimum viable consciousness. You may proceed." Carl stood and walked out of the station. He didn't know where he was going, didn't remember where he'd been. He was light, perfectly light. No past to carry, no memories to weigh him down. He saw a truck in a parking lot. The door was open. Carl climbed in and started driving. He didn't know where. Didn't matter. The road stretched ahead and Carl drove, and that was all he was now. A driver without history. A person without temporal mass. Compliant. Years later, or maybe days, time was meaningless, other drivers began reporting a ghost trucker. A man who appeared on highways at night driving a rig with no company markings, no license plates, no lights. When they tried to wave him down, he wouldn't respond. When they followed him, he'd vanish at the next exit. Some drivers said he was a warning. Others said he was an omen. But the ones who'd seen him up close, who'd glimpsed his face in their mirrors, all agreed on one detail. His eyes were empty. Not dead, not sad, just empty. Like he was looking without seeing.
Driving without knowing why. The portable way stations still appear. Random highways, impossible locations. Always when a driver is running heavy. Always when the temporal mass gets excessive. Most drivers pass them without noticing, but some pull in, some comply, some reduce their weight, remove their moments, edit their timelines into efficiency. And sometimes, those drivers don't come back fully. They leave pieces of themselves at the station. And eventually, when they've complied enough times, when they've removed enough of their existence, they become like Carl. Light, empty, driving forever with nothing to remember and nowhere to arrive. The road doesn't care. The road just wants you to keep moving. And if you're carrying too much time, too many memories, too much weight of having lived, well, the station can help with that. They're very efficient. Just keep driving. Stay compliant. And if you see that portable way station on the roadside, remember, you can always lighten the load. You can always remove the excess. You can always trade your past for permission to continue. Crimson is how much of yourself you're willing to lose before you realize you've arrived at nowhere. Carl never figured that out. He's still driving, still light, still compliant, paycheck, still nothing. 6. The Hitchhiker's Direction. Tommy Valdez picked up the hitchhiker at mile marker 41 on Route 50 through Nevada, the loneliest road in America, because nobody should be walking in that emptiness at 3 a.m., and because Tommy had been alone with his thoughts for 600 miles and needed any distraction, even a stranger. The man stood at the roadside with his thumb out, wearing jeans and a flannel shirt like it wasn't 38 degrees in the October desert. No backpack, no water, just standing there like he'd materialized from the darkness. Tommy pulled his Freightliner onto the shoulder, popped the passenger door. "Where are you headed?" Tommy called out. The man climbed into the cab without answering. Up close, Tommy could see he was maybe 40, maybe 60, with one of those ageless faces that hard living creates. His eyes were dark and still, like pond water. "Anywhere east," the man said finally. His voice was rough, underused. "Just east." "I'm going to Denver," Tommy said. "That east enough?" "It's a direction," the man said.
That's all that matters. Tommy pulled back onto Route 50. The highway stretched ahead, empty and arrow straight, cutting through nothing to reach more nothing. Tommy's load, bottled water, ironically, was light, and he'd been making good time until the boredom started eating at him. A hitchhiker wasn't much, but it was another human presence. "I'm Tommy," he offered. "Marcus," the man said. Then, after a pause, "That's what I'm called now." "Now?" Tommy glanced at him. "You go by different names?" "Names."
Change, Marcus said. Directions don't. East is always east. West is always west. That's reliable. Tommy decided his passenger was odd but harmless. Probably one of those desert philosophers, people who'd spent too long in the emptiness and started thinking strange thoughts. Tommy had met plenty. The road attracted them. They drove in silence for 20 miles. Tommy tried the radio, got static. Tried his phone, no signal. Normal for Route 50. He was about to attempt conversation again when Marcus spoke. "You're going the wrong way," Marcus said. Tommy checked his GPS. The blue line showed Route 50 heading east-northeast, exactly right. "GPS says I'm good. Denver's straight ahead, about 8 hours. "Not wrong for Denver," Marcus clarified. "Wrong for you. This isn't your direction." "My direction is wherever the load takes me," Tommy said, keeping his voice light. "That's how trucking works." "No," Marcus said patiently, like explaining something to a child. "Every person has a direction. It's not about geography. It's about metaphysical momentum. You're pointed the wrong way. Can't you feel it?" Tommy's hands tightened on the wheel. Maybe his passenger was less harmless and more crazy. "I feel fine, just tired. Suppressing." "You feel resistance," Marcus said. "Like you're pushing against something. That's what happens when you travel against your direction. Mine's east, always has been. When I go east, everything flows. When I go west..." He shuddered. "It's like moving through mud. The universe doesn't want me going west." "That's..." Tommy searched for a polite word. "That's an interesting philosophy." "Not philosophy. Fact. You'll see." They passed mile marker 62. The highway remained empty. The desert stretched away on both sides, sage and sand under a moon thin as a fingernail. Tommy's headlights carved a tunnel through the darkness, and he followed it, ignoring Marcus's nonsense. Then his engine stuttered. Tommy checked the gauges. Fuel good, temperature good, oil pressure normal. But the Freightliner hesitated again, missing a beat, like something was interfering with combustion. Tommy eased off the accelerator and the engine smoothed out. "There," Marcus said. "See? Resistance." "That's a mechanical issue," Tommy said. "Not the universe judging my direction." "Try going faster," Marcus suggested. "Push against it." Tommy pressed the accelerator. The engine responded, then stuttered harder. The whole truck shook. Tommy backed off again and the engine calmed. "Okay, that's weird, but it's not..." "Your direction is northwest," Marcus interrupted. "Has been for 3 years. But you keep driving east because the loads take you east. You're accumulating directional debt. Eventually, it'll stop you completely." "Directional debt?" Tommy laughed, but it sounded forced. "That's not a thing." "It is," Marcus said seriously.
Every mile you travel against your natural direction adds debt. Small amounts are manageable, but you've been fighting your direction for years. The debt's catching up. You can feel it in the engine, but it's not the engine. It's you. The truck's fine. You're the one being resisted. Tommy wanted to kick the hitchhiker out, should have kicked him out. But they were in the middle of nowhere, and some irrational part of Tommy's brain whispered that Marcus might be right, that the engine stuttering was too coincidental, that something did feel wrong about heading east. "If what you're saying is true," Tommy said slowly, "how do I fix it?" "Turn around," Marcus said simply. "Go northwest. Pay down your debt by traveling your correct direction. I have a delivery in Denver. I can't just turn around. Then the resistance will increase. Maybe you'll make it to Denver. Maybe you won't. But the debt doesn't forgive itself. And when it accumulates enough..." Marcus looked out the window at the dark desert. "You stop. Completely. Your direction forces you to halt. And then you're stuck. Literally. Can't move forward, can't move back, just stuck in the wrong place, accumulating more debt by existing there." "People don't just get stuck," Tommy said. "Don't they?" Marcus met his eyes. "How many abandoned cars you seen on long highways? How many trucks on the shoulder with no explanation? How many rest stops with vehicles that have been sitting for weeks? Drivers just vanished. Cops assume they wandered off, died in the desert, got picked up by someone else. But really, they hit maximum directional debt. The universe stopped them. They're still there, sort of, existing in a stuck state. Can't be seen anymore because they're not moving. And movement is what makes things real." Tommy's mouth was dry. He'd seen those vehicles. Everyone had. The abandoned cars with no note, no body, no explanation. He'd always assumed drugs or suicide or just people walking away. But Marcus's explanation, crazy as it was, felt true in a way Tommy couldn't articulate. The engine stuttered again. Harder. The whole truck lurched, and for a moment Tommy felt it. Resistance. Like he was pulling a trailer full of concrete blocks. Like the road ahead was uphill even though it was flat. The sensation passed, but sweat prickled Tommy's back. "How do you know all this?" Tommy asked. "I got stuck once," Marcus said. 7 years ago. I was driving west on I-80, fighting my eastern direction. Hit maximum debt outside of Elko. Truck just stopped. Engine running, everything fine, but I couldn't move. Not mechanically stuck. Metaphysically stuck. Sat there for 3 days while traffic passed by. Some people saw me, most didn't. I was phasing out. Phasing out? Stuck things become less real. You stop being part of the flowing world. You're just an obstacle, and reality routes around you. Eventually, you disappear completely. "But you're here," Tommy pointed out. "A traveler stopped. She understood directions. She pulled me out of this stuck state, towed me east for 500 miles, paid down enough debt that I could move again. Been traveling east ever since. Won't ever go west again. Can't risk it." Tommy drove in silence, thinking. His GPS showed Denver ahead. His contract said deliver the water. His bank account needed the payment. But his engine kept stuttering, and the feeling of resistance was growing stronger, like he was driving into a headwind that didn't affect the trees or the sage, only him. "What happens if I turn around?" Tommy asked. Debt starts clearing. You feel lighter. Engine runs smooth. The universe stops fighting you. And my delivery? Someone else will make it, or won't. The water will arrive, or it won't. But you'll be moving your correct direction again. That's what matters. Tommy reached mile marker 83. The engine stuttered so badly the truck nearly stalled. Tommy had to downshift, ease the throttle carefully to keep moving. He was doing 40 miles per hour now, 35. The resistance was crushing. He pulled onto the shoulder, sat with the engine idling, hands shaking slightly on the wheel. "This is insane," he said. "I'm having mechanical problems, that's all. I'll call for a mechanic." "No signal," Marcus reminded him. "And even if there were, what would they fix? There's nothing broken. You're just going the wrong way." Tommy looked at his GPS. Denver was 8 hours east. His direction, if Marcus was right, if any of this insanity was real, was northwest, back toward California, away from his delivery, away from his paycheck, away from everything he was supposed to do. But the engine was dying, and the resistance felt real. And Tommy realized with sick certainty that if he kept driving east, he would get stuck. He would become one of those abandoned trucks. He would phase out of reality, and nobody would remember he'd ever been on this road. "Fuck," Tommy whispered. He checked his mirrors, turned the truck around, and headed west. Immediately, the engine smoothed. The resistance vanished. Tommy felt it like a physical weight lifting, like he'd been wearing a backpack full of stones and suddenly dropped it. The truck accelerated easily, smoothly, eating up the miles. 40, 50, 60. No stuttering, no hesitation. "See?" Marcus said. "You're going with your direction now. Debt's starting to clear." "I'm going the wrong way," Tommy said. But even as he said it, he knew it was a lie. This felt right. This felt like a river current catching him, pulling him along. East had felt like swimming upstream. West, northwest, felt like floating. They drove back through.
The mile markers: 83, 62, 41, where Tommy had picked up Marcus. The hitchhiker pointed to a turnoff Tommy hadn't noticed before, a small road heading northwest into the mountains. "That's your way," Marcus said. "Take it." "That's not a highway, that's barely a road." "It's your direction. Trust me." Tommy had already turned around, already committed to this insanity. What was one more irrational decision? He took the turnoff. The road climbed into foothills, winding through juniper and pine. Tommy's GPS lost the route, just showed him as a blue dot on gray nothing. But the truck drove like a dream, smooth and powerful, and Tommy felt good. Better than he'd felt in years, like every mile was healing something inside him. "How long do I drive this direction?" Tommy asked. "Until your debt is paid," Marcus said. "Could be days, could be weeks. You'll know. The resistance will disappear completely. You'll feel balanced. Then what? Then you can drive east again if you want. Short distances, but you'll need to return northwest regularly to stay balanced. Most people don't realize they have directions. They just feel vaguely unhappy, vaguely wrong, driving routes that fight them. You're lucky. You felt the resistance before it stuck you." They drove through the night and into dawn. The road split, and Marcus pointed northwest each time. They passed abandoned towns, forgotten mines, roads that didn't appear on any map. And every mile, Tommy felt lighter, clearer, like he was shedding layers of grime he hadn't known he was carrying. At sunrise, Marcus suddenly said, "Stop here." Tommy pulled over. They were on a ridge overlooking a valley, mountains rising northwest into California.
The view was stunning in the pink dawn light. Marcus opened his door. "This is where I get out," he said. "But we're in the middle of nowhere," Tommy protested. "My direction continues east," Marcus said. "Yours is northwest. We part ways here. You've got about 200 more miles before your debt is clear. You'll know. Trust the feeling." "What if I get stuck?" Tommy asked. "You won't. You're going the right way now." Marcus paused at the door. "But Tommy, don't fight your direction again. Don't take loads that pull you east for too long. The debt accumulates fast, and next time, you might not get unstuck." Marcus climbed down and walked away, not down the road, but across the open land, heading due east like he was following an invisible line only he could see. Tommy watched until the hitchhiker vanished into the landscape and then continued northwest. Tommy drove for 3 more days. He called his dispatcher from a town with cell service, reported mechanical problems, said he had to abandon the load. They were pissed. They fired him. Tommy didn't care. He kept driving.
Northwest, following his direction, feeling the last of the resistance fade. On the 3rd day, somewhere in Northern California, Tommy felt it. Balance. The universe stopped pushing. He was centered, moving correctly, aligned with his natural direction. He could feel it like he could feel his heartbeat. This was right. This was where he was supposed to be. Tommy got a new job with a California regional carrier. Short routes, mostly northwest and back. He never took loads that went east for more than a day. He learned to feel his direction, to recognize when he was accumulating debt, to balance his routes. And he started noticing other things. People walking against their directions. They looked tired, dragged down, moving like they were pushing through mud. People walking with their directions. They looked lighter, faster, more alive. The world was full of direction, invisible rivers of metaphysical momentum pulling everyone toward their correct paths. Most people never noticed. They fought their directions their whole lives and wondered why everything felt hard. Tommy had noticed, and now he couldn't unsee it. Sometimes, late at night on empty highways, Tommy picked up hitchhikers. He could tell immediately if they were traveling with or against their direction. The ones going against, he'd turn around, take them the opposite way, help them start paying down their debt. The ones going with, he'd take them as far as their directions aligned with his. He became a courier of direction, helping stuck people get moving again. It wasn't trucking anymore. It was something else, something more important. And Tommy never saw Marcus again, but he thought about him often. Wondered if the hitchhiker was still walking east, following his direction across the continent. Wondered how many other people Marcus had helped, how many stuck drivers he'd freed. The road wasn't just geography, it was direction, momentum, metaphysical flow. And once you understood that, once you felt your direction, you could never go back to random driving. You were committed to the path, your path. Tommy drove northwest, balanced and aligned, and for the first time in years, he wasn't tired. PNG, he was home. Not geographically, directionally. And that was all that mattered. Storing 7, the black cargo. Interceptions Okafor accepted the load at 2 a.m. from a broker she'd never worked with before, which should have been her first warning. But the pay was $14,000 for a single run from Houston to Bangor, and Rita's truck needed a new transmission, so she ignored her instincts and backed up to the warehouse on Navigation Boulevard.
The warehouse wasn't marked. No company name, no signs, just a number on the door, 4717. Men in unmarked overalls loaded her trailer with 43 identical crates, each one black plastic, sealed with metallic bands, completely unlabeled. No hazmat placards, no shipping documentation beyond a manifest that listed
the contents as industrial components. "Don't open the crates," the foreman said. He was a white man, 50s, with the kind of face that had seen things he wouldn't talk about. "Don't inspect the cargo. Don't stop between here and Bangor except for fuel and legally mandated rest breaks. You break seal on the trailer before delivery, you don't get paid." "What's in them?" Rita asked. "Industrial components," the foreman repeated flatly. "That's all you need to know." Rita had hauled suspicious cargo before, electronics that were probably stolen, machine parts that were definitely guns. Once, a sealed container from a pharmaceutical company that hummed like it was alive. But she'd never hauled cargo that made her this uneasy, and she couldn't articulate why. The crates just looked wrong. Too black. The color absorbed light in a way that made them hard to look at directly. But $14,000. Rita signed the manifest, locked her trailer, and started driving. She made it to Beaumont, 60 miles, before the smell started. It came through the vents, through the seals, through the metal itself, sweet and rotten like meat gone bad mixed with chemicals. Rita gagged, opened her windows, but the smell intensified. She pulled into a truck stop, ran to the back of her trailer, checked the doors. Still sealed, still locked, but the smell was pouring out, thick enough to taste. Other truckers in the parking lot were staring, backing away. One called out, "Lady, something died in there!" Rita pulled out her phone, called the broker. No answer. Tried again. Voicemail. She left a message. "The cargo smells like a goddamn corpse. I'm opening the trailer to inspect." She broke the seal. The doors swung open and the smell hit like a physical force. Rita stumbled back, eyes watering. Inside, the 43 crates sat in neat rows, unchanged. But between them, pooling on the trailer floor, was liquid. Black. Thick. More than leaked. There was too much. Gallons of it, spreading. Rita approached the nearest crate. The metallic bands were intact, but the black plastic had softened, like it was melting from the inside. She touched it carefully. Warm. Body temperature. Something inside the crate moved. Rita jerked back. The crate shuddered and the liquid on the floor surged toward it, flowing upward, defying gravity, seeping back into the softened plastic like the crate was absorbing it. Rita watched in frozen horror as all the liquid retreated, pulled back into the 43 crates until the trailer floor was dry. The smell disappeared instantly. Rita stood in the parking lot, breathing hard, staring at cargo that now looked completely normal. Black crates, metallic bands, sealed and secure. No liquid, no smell, no movement. Her phone rang. Unknown number. Rita answered. "Ms. Okafor," a woman's voice said, calm and professional. "We detect you've opened the trailer. That violates the contract. However, we understand you were concerned about the cargo. Please reseal the trailer and continue to Bangor. The contents are stable now." "What the fuck is in those crates?" Rita demanded. "Industrial components undergoing active biological processing. The smell was a byproduct of metabolic activity. It will recur approximately every 6 hours. Do not open the trailer again. The exposure to oxygen destabilizes the process." "Biological processing? You're shipping something alive?" "Not precisely," the woman said. "The The components are in a transitional state, neither alive nor dead. The processing will complete upon delivery. You've been paid substantial money to transport without questioning. Please continue. And if I refuse, then you'll be in breach of contract. The payment will be reversed, and you'll be liable for damages. Additionally, the woman paused. The cargo cannot be abandoned. Once loaded, it must reach its destination. If you leave it, it will find its own way, and that's much messier. For everyone, including you. Rita's stomach turned. Are you threatening me? I'm explaining consequences. Please continue to Bangor. You've made it 60 miles. Only 2,300 more to go. The call ended. Rita stood in the truck stop parking lot looking at her trailer. The cargo was sealed again. The smell was gone. Everything appeared normal. She could call the police, report, what? Suspicious cargo that had leaked and then unleaked itself? They'd think she was high. Rita climbed back in her cab. $14,000. She needed that transmission. And the woman had been clear. Abandoning the cargo was worse than delivering it. Rita didn't know what "it will find its own way" meant, but she believed the threat. Something about this cargo felt patient, intelligent, like it would remember if she failed it. Rita drove. 6 hours later, outside Little Rock, the smell returned. Worse this time. Rita kept her windows up, breathing through her shirt, trying not to vomit. The smell was inside her now, coating her throat, her lungs. She could taste it, sweet rot with a metallic undertone that made her think of blood and rust and decay. She heard sounds from the trailer, wet sounds, movement, things sliding across metal. Rita turned up her radio to drown it out, but she could still hear it, feel it through the vibrations in her seat. The cargo was active, doing something, processing. Her phone rang. Same unknown number. Rita didn't answer. It rang 3 more times, then stopped. A text message appeared. Do not stop. Remain in motion. Processing accelerates when stationary. Rita pressed the accelerator. 70 miles per hour. 75. The freightliner shook with the speed, but Rita didn't care. Whatever was in her trailer, she wanted it in Bangor, not in Arkansas. The smell faded after 20 minutes. The sounds stopped. Rita's hands ached from gripping the wheel. She forced herself to breathe normally, to think. Industrial components, biological processing, transitional state between alive and dead. Kang, that wasn't cargo. That was something else, something organic, something that shouldn't be shipped in trucks on public highways. Rita's CB crackled to life, even though she hadn't turned it on. A voice came through, distorted, wet-sounding. Driver, we require confirmation. Is the vessel maintaining temperature? Who is this? Rita demanded. How are you on my radio? Is the vessel maintaining temperature? The voice repeated. The transition requires 98.6 degrees Fahrenheit. Is the cargo stable? Rita checked her trailer temperature gauge. Manifest hadn't specified temperature control, but the gauge showed 98 degrees. Body temperature. The trailer was heating itself. Or the cargo was. It's 98 degrees, Rita said. Acceptable. Continue. We will monitor. Who the fuck are you monitoring from? We are the cargo, the voice said, and the CB went dead. Rita nearly drove off the road. She corrected hard, the trailer fishtailing. Her heart slammed against her ribs. The cargo was communicating. The cargo was sentient. The cargo was monitoring itself. What the hell was she transporting? Rita drove through the night and into dawn. Memphis, Nashville, Knoxville. The smell returned on schedule every 6 hours. Each time it was stronger
and the sounds were louder. Definite movement now, things shifting inside the crates, plastic creaking, metallic bands straining. Rita could hear wet breathing sounds, dozens of them, synchronized, like a single massive lung inhaling and exhaling. In Virginia, Rita stopped for fuel. Required stop, legally mandated. She filled her tanks while trying not to look at her trailer. Other truckers were staring at it, backing their trucks away. One approached Rita. "Ma'am, your trailer's sweating," he said. Rita looked. The metal exterior of her trailer was covered in condensation, not normal moisture. This was thick, viscous, that same black liquid from Houston. It was seeping through the metal itself, beating on the surface, dripping onto the pavement. Where it hit, the asphalt sizzled. "Get away from it," Rita said. "Don't touch it." The trucker backed away. Rita finished fueling and drove away fast, leaving black drip marks across the truck stop parking lot. Her phone rang. The woman's voice. "Ms. Okafor, the cargo is entering final processing stage. You're approximately 400 miles from Bangor. You must maintain current speed. Do not stop again. The transition cannot be interrupted now." "What happens if I stop?" Rita asked. "The cargo will emerge prematurely. It's not ready. Premature emergence is problematic."
For you, primarily. Just keep driving.
"You need to tell me what I'm hauling."
"You're hauling us," the woman said. "We paid you to be our vessel, our transportation, our womb, in a sense. We need the motion, the heat, the time to transition. We're almost there. 4 more hours. You can do 4 hours."
"Us?"
Rita's voice cracked.
"How many?"
43, the woman said. 1 per crate. We were human once, but we required upgrading. The transition takes 3 days of constant motion at body temperature. You've provided that. Thank you. Your payment will be delivered upon completion." The call ended. Rita looked in her mirror at her sweating, breathing trailer. 43 people. 43 transitioning things, upgrading, becoming something else. And she was the womb, the vessel, carrying them across the country while they transformed. Rita thought about opening the trailer, dumping the cargo on the highway. But the woman had said emergence was problematic, and Rita believed it. Whatever was in those crates wasn't human anymore. Might not be human at all. If they came out here on I-81 in Virginia, what would they do? Rita kept driving. The final hour was the worst. The trailer was shaking now, constant movement inside. The black liquid was pouring from every seam, coating the trailer, dripping onto the highway behind her in a trail like breadcrumbs. The smell was permanent, inescapable. And the sounds, the wet breathing had become voices. 43 voices, speaking in unison, a language Rita didn't recognize, words that made her head pound and her vision blur. Her GPS showed Bangor ahead, 30 miles, 20, 10. The delivery address was on the outskirts, an industrial building that looked abandoned. Rita backed up to the loading dock at 4:37 a.m., 3 days exactly since loading in Houston. The trailer doors burst open before she could unlock them. The crates were gone. Not broken, not opened. Gone. Absorbed. Metabolized. In their place stood 43 figures. They looked human at first glance, 2 arms, 2 legs, standing upright. But they were too tall, too thin, and their skin was that same light-absorbing black as the crates. Their faces were smooth, featureless except for eyes that glowed faintly in the pre-dawn darkness. They climbed out of the trailer in perfect synchronization, moving like dancers,
like a single organism in 43 bodies. They turned to Rita, all of them at once, and one spoke. The woman from the phone. But her voice was layered now, all 43 voices speaking through one mouth. "Thank you, Ms. Okafor. Your service is complete. Payment has been transferred. You may leave." Rita checked her phone. Her bank account showed an additional $14,000, exactly as promised. She looked at the 43 figures. "What are you?" "What we needed to become," they said. "Human limitations removed."
Collective consciousness implemented. We are the next iteration. There will be more of us. Many more. We'll need transportation. We'll call you again. Expelled. "No," Rita said. "No, I'm not doing this again." "You will," they said with certainty. "You've seen us. You've carried us. You're part of the process now. We'll call. You'll answer. The money is too much to refuse, and you need the money. Everyone always needs the money." They walked away from the trailer into the abandoned building, and Rita heard machinery starting up inside, complex industrial sounds, and other sounds underneath, biological, wet, like birthing. Rita climbed into her cab and drove away. She didn't stop until she reached Portland, Maine, another 100 miles of putting distance between herself and whatever she'd just delivered. She checked into a motel and slept for 16 hours. When she woke, her phone had 7 missed calls from unknown numbers. 7 voicemail messages. Rita listened to the first one. "Ms. Okafor, we have another shipment. San Diego to Boston. 47 units this time. Payment $20,000. Pick up tonight. Please confirm." Rita deleted the message. Then the second message, same request, higher payment. Third message, fourth. By the 7th message, they were offering $50,000. Rita blocked the numbers, all of them, changed her phone, got a new number, told her dispatcher she was done with long hauls, would only take regional routes, short distances, nothing over 500 miles. But late at night, in truck stops, Rita sees them. The figures. Too tall, too thin, skin too dark. They stand at the edges of parking lots, watching trucks, waiting. Sometimes they approach other drivers. Sometimes those drivers nod, shake hands, accept manifests. More vessels, more wombs, more truckers carrying transitioning cargo across the country, while the figures multiply. Rita doesn't know what they're building toward, doesn't know how many of them there are now, but she sees them spreading, sees the network growing, and she knows she was part of it. She helped 43 of them transition, helped them become whatever they are now. The money is still in her account. Rita hasn't spent it, can't spend it. It feels contaminated, blood money. Except worse, because blood is at least human, and what she'd carried had stopped being human somewhere on the highway between Houston and Bangor. Sometimes, Rita's CB crackles with that wet, layered voice. "We remember you, Ms. Okafor. You were an excellent vessel. When you're ready, we have work for you. The transition continues. We need more carriers. The payment increases with each shipment. Eventually, everyone drives for us." Rita doesn't respond, just drives her regional routes, stays in populated areas, avoids the night when possible. But she knows they're patient, and she knows they're right about one thing. People always need money. And there's always a driver desperate enough to accept cargo without asking questions. Always someone willing to be the vessel. The transition continues. The network grows. And somewhere on the highways, right now,
another trucker is loading black crates, sealing their trailer, starting the 3-day journey that will help 43-somethings become more than human. Rita hopes she never sees them again. But late at night, in her mirrors, she sometimes glimpses figures too tall and too thin, standing at the roadside with their thumbs out, looking for their next vessel. She drives past without stopping. Always drives past. But they're patient. They can wait. And eventually, everyone stops for the right passenger. Everyone. Story 8. Jake Sullivan started seeing his own truck behind him at 11:43 p.m. on I-75 southbound through Georgia. Same Peterbilt model, same blue paint, same company logo, Midwest Transport. Same DOT numbers on the door. Same scratch on the left fender from that parking incident in Tulsa. Identical. Following him at a steady distance of 200 yards. Jake keyed his CB. This is Blue Devil southbound at mile marker 260. They're a Midwest Transport driver behind me. Static. Then his own voice. This is Blue Devil southbound at mile marker 260. I'm following you. Don't slow down. Jake's blood went cold. His own voice. Exact intonation. Speaking words he hadn't said. He checked his mirrors again. The truck behind him was close enough now to see through the windshield. The driver looked like Jake. Same beard, same Carhartt jacket, same tired eyes. The driver waved at him. A slow, deliberate wave. Jake pressed the accelerator. 70 miles per hour, 75. The truck behind him maintained distance perfectly, matching his speed exactly. Jake tried to remember what was behind him before. Had there been a truck? Had it been there all along? He couldn't remember. The highway had been empty, and then suddenly, it wasn't. His CB crackled again, his voice. You can't outrun me, Jake. I'm you. We're synchronized now. Same speed, same route, same destination. Who the fuck are you? Jake shouted at the radio. I'm you, his voice repeated patiently. From a different probability. Your timeline split 3 days ago. You made a choice, turned left at an intersection in Atlanta. I turned right. Different routes, different lives. But the timelines are collapsing back together. By morning, we'll be one person again. For now, we're both driving. Jake's hands shook on the wheel. He'd been in Atlanta 3 days ago. He'd turned left on Peachtree Street to avoid traffic. He didn't remember considering turning right. It had seemed obvious to go left. That's not how reality works, Jake said to the CB. You're not me. I am you, his voice insisted. I have all your memories. Your wife,
Sarah. Your daughter Emma, she's 12 now. Your dog's name is Cooper. Your first truck was a Freightliner. You got your CDL in 2009. You have a scar on your right knee from falling off your bike when you were 8. Should I continue? Jake's mind reeled. Those details were right, all of them, even the bike scar which he never talked about. What do you want? To merge back, his voice said. Timeline splits are temporary. The universe doesn't like parallel versions. We're being pulled together. By dawn, we'll occupy the same space. One of us will become primary. The other will cease to be distinct. We'll be unified again. Which one of us becomes primary? Unknown. Could be you. Could be me. Could be a blend. But only one timeline can continue.
The other collapses, and its experiences become dreams, vague memories, alternate possibilities that never quite happened. Jake looked in his mirror. His double was still there, still driving, still matching his speed. How do I stop this? You can't. Timeline collapse is inevitable once synchronization begins. We're on the same road now, same direction, same speed. We're being pulled into convergence. Fighting it just makes the collapse more traumatic. Then I'll stop, Jake said. I'll pull over, break the synchronization. I wouldn't recommend that, his voice said. Forced desynchronization causes paradox. Both timelines could collapse completely. Both of us cease to exist. Jake pulled onto the shoulder anyway, the truck fishtailing slightly. He set the air brake, killed the engine. In his mirror, his double also pulled onto the shoulder, also stopped. Perfect synchronization even in stopping. Jake climbed out of his cab. His double climbed out of his cab. They stood on opposite sides of the 200 yards between their trucks, staring at each other across the dark highway. Identical. Mirror images. This is insane, Jake called out. His voice echoed in the empty night. Blackmail mechanics, his double called back. Multiple timelines collapsing into singularity. It happens more often than people realize. Usually the versions never meet. They just merge seamlessly, and you wake up with vague memories of dreams that feel real. But sometimes, like now, the versions encounter each other during collapse. That's when it gets complicated. Jake walked toward his double. His double walked toward him. They met in the middle of the highway under a flickering light post. Up close, the resemblance was perfect. Not just similar. Identical. Same age lines around the eyes. Same coffee stain on the jacket from this morning. Same everything. If we merge, what happens to my timeline? Jake asked. The 3 days since I turned left. Do they matter? They'll become part of the unified memory, his double said. But my 3 days will also be part of it. We'll remember both paths, both choices. It'll feel like we live 2 lives simultaneously. Most people can't handle that. The conflicting memories drive them mad. They end up in psych wards talking about parallel lives, and nobody believes them. So either way, I lose, Jake said. Either I cease to exist, or I go insane. Or you integrate successfully, his double said. Some people can hold multiple timelines in their head. They become stronger, more complete. They remember every choice, every path, every possibility. They see probability more clearly. It's rare, but it happens. Jake looked at his double, at himself, and made a decision. I don't want to merge. I want my timeline to continue. Separate. Silenced. That's not possible. Then I'll make it impossible for us to synchronize. I'll drive west, you drive east. We separate. Maybe the collapse stops. His double shook his head, sadly. We tried that, in other probability branches. It doesn't work. The universe pulls us back together. You'd drive west, I'd drive east, and somehow, through accidents, through detours, through impossible coincidences, we'd end up on the same road again. Synchronization is inevitable. Then what the fuck am I supposed to do? Jake's voice broke. Accept it, his double said gently. Stop fighting. Let the merge happen naturally. Maybe you'll be primary. Maybe I will. Maybe we'll blend perfectly and become something better than either of us alone.
Jake looked at the highway stretching in both directions. Empty. Dark. He was having a conversation with himself on a Georgia roadside at midnight, discussing quantum mechanics and timeline collapse, and some part of his brain was screaming that this wasn't real, that he was having a psychotic break, that the loneliness of the road had finally broken in. But his double was solid. Real. And the logic, insane as it was, made sense in a way that hallucinations didn't. "I'm going back to my truck," Jake said. "I'm going to keep driving, and you're going to stay the fuck away from me." "I'll be right behind you," his double said. Same distance, same speed, all the way to convergence. Jake climbed back in his cab, started the engine, pulled onto the highway. In his mirrors, his double did the same, synchronized. They drove through the Georgia night, two identical trucks, two identical drivers, approaching a singularity neither of them could avoid. Hour later, Jake saw more trucks, not behind him, ahead. 3 of them, all Peterbilts, all blue, all with Midwest Transport logos, all driven by versions of himself. Cohen CB exploded with his own voice, layered and overlapping. "Jake, we're all converging. Timeline split wasn't 2 branches, it was 7. We all turned different directions in Atlanta. By dawn, we all merge. I'm scared. This is beautiful."
I don't want to disappear.
7 versions of Jake Sullivan, all on the same highway, all approaching the same point. 7 timelines collapsing into one. 7 lives, 7 sets of memories, 7 different choices, all funneling into a single morning where only one version would continue. Jake pulled over again. All 7 trucks pulled over in perfect synchronization. Jake climbed out. His 6 doubles climbed out. They stood in a line on the shoulder, 7 versions of the same man, looking at each other under the fluorescent highway lights. "This is impossible," one Jake said. "We're all saying that," another Jake said. "How do we decide who survives?" a third Jake asked. "We don't decide," a fourth Jake said. "The universe decides. The primary timeline will assert itself. The others will collapse into might-have-beens." "I have a family," a fifth Jake said. "Sarah and Emma. I need to get home to them." "We all have them," a sixth Jake said. "We're all going home, but only one of us will arrive." Patience, the 7th Jake, the original Jake, the one who'd first seen his double, looked at his other selves. Different expressions, different body language, subtle variations born from 3 days of different choices. One looked confident, one looked terrified, one looked resigned, one looked curious, one looked angry, one looked sad. They were him. All of him. Every possibility, every path, every choice made manifest. "What if we refuse to merge?" original Jake asked. "What if we all drive away in different directions?" "The collapse accelerates," confident Jake said. "We'd be pulled back together violently. Reality doesn't tolerate parallel versions indefinitely. We either merge smoothly or we collapse catastrophically." "Then let's do it," resigned Jake said. "Let's stop dragging it out. Let's merge now." "How?" terrified Jake asked. "We touch," curious Jake said. "Physical contact between versions. That's what triggers full convergence. I can feel it. Can't you?" They could. All of them could feel it. A pull toward each other, a magnetism, reality trying to collapse 7 timelines into one. Original Jake stepped forward. Confident Jake stepped forward. They reached out, their hands meeting. The world fractured. Jake experienced all 7 timelines simultaneously. He was turning left in Atlanta, and right and straight, and circling back and taking the highway and taking the surface streets and stopping completely. He was choosing every option at once, and every choice branched into more choices, and those branched again, and suddenly Jake was experiencing not 7 timelines, but hundreds, thousands. Every possible decision he'd made, or could make, or might make, all occurring simultaneously. He was a child learning to ride a bike, a teenager getting his license, a young man falling in love with Sarah, a father holding Emma for the first time, a trucker driving through every state, in every season, in every possible variation of his life. He was dying in a crash on I-40. He was retiring peacefully. He was winning the lottery. He was losing everything. He was happy. He was miserable. He was every version of himself that had ever existed or could exist.